to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is the 1993 Menendez brothers trial. We are on the defense's case. This is part 6 of their case, and we are going to continue on. We've been hearing from family members, speaking up for the boys, and discussing what it was really like in that house. I don't think anybody actually knew what it was really like, but they're giving us glimpses as to how Jose and Kitty actually were, how they treated the boys, the way that they parented in and around other people, the way they punished the boys around other people. So there's a lot of patterns that we're seeing that would definitely indicate that there could have been some ABUSE going on in that house. I Because the YouTube algorithms, we use the short term for it, which would be like SA or CA for that kind of thing on here because we can't talk about it. Just because YouTube finds certain words offensive, and so we try to accommodate to that. So, anyways, we are going to dive right in to Carlos Baralt. This is the boy's uncle, Lyle and Eric's uncle, and let's see what he's got to say.
And Eric Menendez.
Yes, I am.
And if you would look over your right shoulder, we have a family tree chart. And on the far right-hand side, it says Terry and Carlos. Is that you and your wife?
Yes, it is.
And the 4 names underneath are your 4 daughters?
Yes.
Is that correct? And I believe yesterday you saw Joan Van.
So this is Carlos of Terry and Carlos, obviously. And the last few episodes, we've listened to Marta and Peter. We also heard from Marianne. We have heard from Andy. We heard from Andy a little while ago. Was he the first one? He was in this part 2. Andy was Cano was in part 2. So that's that family we've gone through. So now we're starting to talk to the Baralts. We've already talked to, or they've talked. Did we have a Baralt in the States case? I can't remember now. That seems so long ago. I'm looking at our witnesses. I don't think so, but the Baralt family name has come up repeatedly. So yeah, I don't see them. But maybe we had them earlier. There's so many witnesses, I can't remember them all. No. Okay, they just have been spoken about, I guess. So the Baralts, I guess, are up. So let's see what they've got to say. Sorry.
Vandermolen here, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And does her name appear on the Anderson?
Left-hand side.
Joan and Arnold?
Yes.
Is Arnold her husband?
That's correct.
And underneath it are Arnold, Karen, Kevin, Diane, and Kathy. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And are those her 5 children?
That's my understanding.
And the name next to Joan and Arnold, the next couple, is Milton and Joyce.
That's correct.
And Milton is Kitty Menendez's brother. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the next name is Brian and Pat. Brian is Kitty Menendez's brother also. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you see Pat Anderson here yesterday testifying?
Yes, she was here.
Mr. Baralt, when did you first meet Jose Menendez?
At my girlfriend's, at that time, my girlfriend's home in Cuba, in Havana, Cuba.
And when was that?
That must have been 59. Yeah,
And your wife, Terry, is Jose Menendez's sister. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And from the time that you first met Jose Menendez, were you around him for most of your life?
Yes, I would think so. Absolutely.
You worked with him part of the time, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And you and your family lived very close to the Menendez family for a substantial period of time, is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
During that period of time, did you have an opportunity to observe the parenting techniques of Kitty and Jose Menendez?
Yes.
And did you on occasion have conversations with Jose Menendez about some of his parenting skills?
Once in a while.
And were those criticisms that you had?
Were things that I had observed that I felt that I would not do as a parent myself, and I felt that I should tell him about them.
And just generally, what type of behavior are we talking about? Are we talking about physical interaction, or are we talking about verbal interaction with his children?
Both.
Can you tell me the types of behavior that you were critical of, that you spoke to Jose about?
There was a situation where a physical situation between Lyle and Eric, where there was some educational choices that Jose had made that I felt were he wanted Lyle to go to Princeton. I felt that he should not.
Why did you feel he should not?
I felt that that Princeton was not for Lyle, and he was pretty strong in his belief and a choice of Princeton for him.
Jose was pretty strong in his belief, is that correct?
Yes, it was. Yes, he was.
Okay. And did you feel that academically this was not the right place for Lyle to go?
That's correct. Yeah.
Did you feel that the chances of his succeeding there were pretty minimal?
I felt he would not finish at Princeton. There was no way that he would finish at Princeton.
And did Jose indicate why Princeton was so important to him?
He felt that Princeton offered the background in life that would permit him to be very successful in terms of contacts and
It's all about success to Jose. Success, power, money, control over people. That's all it is. And so Jose wants his son to go there to have that power and prestige because Princeton is such a prestigious school. So he wants to make sure that his son is given all those opportunities for success, or at least the appearances of success.
influences in general.
Was success very important to Jose?
Yes, it was very important.
And was it very important to him that his children succeed as well?
I think that it was one of his most important things in his life, I'm sure.
It would be an understatement to say it was important to him, I think. I think it was the end all be all to Jose. I really do. I think that was all he cared about.
And did he have attitudes about winning and the importance of winning that you were
That
critical
was
of?
another area that I've talked to him about, and at one point in time, we had a conversation on winning, and he said that winning was all important. And my observation to him was that I felt that trying was more important than winning. You should do the best you can. And he said, no, that's not the case. It's winning is the only thing that's important. And trying and coming in second best is not enough.
And did he pass this philosophy on to his children through his parenting techniques?
Not being an expert on the matter, I would think that that not only guided his teachings of the kids, but his own life. And so it would have been a role model for them.
Can you imagine the amount of stress that puts on a kid to make sure that they're always perfect in everything that they do? Because God forbid they make a mistake or they don't win the tennis match. God forbid Jose feels like they, tarnish the Menendez name if they don't do a perfect job every time. And just imagine that pressure. Imagine just besides the essay and all that, imagine just growing up in a house where that's the sole focus of your parents and making you this, this like successful little machine rather than, treating you like their child and giving you affection and love and support.
And did you ever comment on the kind of pressure that this put on the children, that they were expected to win and nothing else was satisfactory?
Yes, I did. That was part of our conversation in that particular situation. That I essentially told him that that was the wrong thing to portray to his kids. That a kid could not be expected to do better than the best that he can do, even if it is not winning.
Did he accept that?
No, he did not.
Did he talk to you about? Did he ever express to you his view of whether children should be raised to trust people?
Yes, he felt that on one occasion he said he illustrated something that he had done to one of his kids.
And was that kid Eric?
Yes, it was.
And how did he illustrate what he had done?
He was telling me that he was playing with Eric, and Eric was sort of like throwing himself off of a counter. And on one occasion.
All right, this is what was related to the witness by Jose Menendez.
Yes.
Specific anecdote, which we get a better difference.
It is not being received for the truth of the matter asserted, just to reflect the state of mind of Jose Menendez. You may proceed.
And one of the occasions in which Eric threw himself and he would catch him, he did not catch him.
Intentionally?
Intentionally. And I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, just that's to teach him a lesson that you can't trust anybody, not even your father.
And Did you feel that there was a lot of pressure put on these children?
Objection, improper opinion.
Sustained.
Based on your observations of Jose Menendez as he interacted with his children and Kitty Menendez as she interacted with her children, were you able to hear conversations that indicated there was a lot of pressure put on these children? Pressure to succeed.
I would say on occasion, not always.
And these were the types of issues that you discussed with Mr. Menendez. Is that correct, with
Yes.
Jose Menendez? And did he seem to be receptive to your suggestions or seem to think that they had some merit?
It was hard to say because Jose would accept your statement and then pretty much not argue with you.
And
He
then-
would just, say yes or no. Many times he would just say yes, and you knew that it was to end the conversation.
So the fact that he said yes didn't mean that he agreed with you necessarily,
That's correct.
and he would go on and do what he wanted to do.
Absolutely.
Did you, you indicated that one of the times that you spoke to him about his decision-making was about the decision for Lyle to go to Princeton when you thought that was inappropriate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And was it your impression, particularly with regard to Lyle, that Jose was attempting to create a copy of himself to a degree?
Objection, false speculation.
Sustained.
What was your opinion with regard to Jose Menendez's expectations for his son Lyle?
Objection, improper opinion.
Sustained.
Did Jose Menendez ever express to you what his goals were for Lyle?
Yes.
And what were they?
To have a, he said that Lyle should not have the problems in achieving the type of success that he had,
And,
and that he was going to provide him with the opportunity to do so.
and what problems was he referring to specifically?
He felt that it had been harder for him to get to where he was because of the fact that he was not a graduate of a Ivy League school, and he saw other people who were graduates who were not as capable as he, that had it much easier than he had.
And did Jose Menendez seem to take an interest in what sports his sons played?
But again, that's Jose taking his own perceptions and putting that down on his children, like his own twisted reality that he forces down the kids' throats.
And how they played them?
Yes, he was very much interested, and he expressed to me that that they should choose one sport and excel at it, as opposed to participating in many sports and being relatively good at it.
Were sports for fun or for accomplishment?
The particular, I think the conversation essentially at that point, it was an accomplishment, a matter of accomplishment.
With regard to Mrs. Menendez, did she seem to have a different relationship with Lyle than she had with Eric?
Yes,
Did she seem to be closer to Eric than she was to Lyle?
yes.
Did she, in fact, openly express to you that she disliked Lyle?
In the latter parts of her life,
She actually said she disliked him.
yes.
Wait, Kitty said that? Hold on, back up. Who are we talking about? Kitty, right?
With regard to Mrs. Menendez,
Yeah.
did she seem to have a different relationship with Lyle than she had with Eric?
Yes,
Did she seem to be closer to Eric than she was to Lyle?
yes.
Did she, in fact, openly express to you that she disliked Lyle?
What mother does that? I mean, okay.
In the latter parts of her life,
She actually said she disliked him.
yes.
Wow.
After Kitty and Jose Menendez died, did you come out to California?
Yes, I did.
And were you and a number of other relatives in the Beverly Hills house?
Yes, I was.
And was there an effort to find a will?
That was the purpose for my being there, yes.
And was a will found?
Yes, there was a will found.
And was this an old will or a new will?
It was an old will dating to 1981.
And did you continue looking for another will even after finding the old will?
Yes, I did.
And did you go to several banks in an effort to look in safety deposit boxes to determine if there was a new will?
I believe we went to one bank
And why was it that you thought that there was a new will?
because I have had two conversations with Jose in which he had mentioned he was going to have a new will.
When were those conversations?
The first one took place either late 1988 or early 1989. And the second one was in the early summer, June, July of 1989.
And did Jose Menendez indicate to you any specific changes he wanted to make in that new will?
Yes, he wanted to leave Lila and Eric off the will.
Did you express to him some concern about what their reaction would be when they found out that they had been taken out of the will?
I did express a concern about how he would tell them and what would happen.
And what did he say about that?
He said that he had already told them.
That they were out of the will?
Yes.
while you were in California during that trip, immediately after Kitty and Jose Menendez died,
So if the boys already thought that they were out of the will, then that completely takes away the motive for the state. And there was never another will found. So I'm confused still how we're here, but okay.
was there some information in a computer that was discovered, some reference to a will?
Yes, there was.
Now, were you among the group of people who initially found that reference? Or were you shown it sometime later?
Someone else found it. I came in after that.
And did you look at the information that was available in the computer with regard to a reference to a will?
Yes.
And could you determine by looking at it how much information was in the computer on that subject?
I only saw a directory with a listing of three or four files, and that was it.
And could you see the size of the file? Did it appear that there was anything in the will file?
No, it was a very small number of characters, and it could not have been much more than perhaps a name or one or two words, 3 words, or something like that. It was not certainly not a will.
And while you were still in California, were there discussions about this file marked will and the fact that there wasn't anything in it?
Yes.
And were there discussions about whether a will in a computer would be valid?
Yes, there were.
And was Lyle present at these discussions?
That's, at least a couple of times.
You're the executor of the estate, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if you had thought that there was some sort of valid will or there was something in there that was actually going to have some legal significance, I assume you would have made arrangements to try to get that information. Is that correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I felt that whatever was there, I believed that would not be sustainable under a court of law as a valid will because it would not have been signed nor witnessed. However, I felt it would be of general interest.
And so were arrangements made sometime later for someone to come and look at the will, or at this entry in the computer?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, were there 2 relatives who evidently were both making arrangements to get this information?
That's correct.
And one was Carlos Menendez.
That's correct.
And another one was Eileen.
That's correct.
Is that correct? And is Eileen the second name under Marta and Peter? Marta being Jose Menendez's other sister?
Yes, it is.
And I understand we've spelled it wrong, but is that the right person?
That's the right person. I believe it's spelled right.
Oh, okay. When you were out here those first few days after Kitty and Jose died, I take it there were a number of people who were in the house. Is that correct? Number of relatives?
Initially in my first trip?
Yes.
Yes, there were.
And was anybody keeping track of who was taking things or not taking things out of there, or were there just a lot of people in and out of the house?
The first couple of days, the only people there were, I guess, Lyle and Eric, and then the family came in after that.
And the family, Joan and Pat? And
Joan, yes, and Carlos Menendez, and Brian, and Maria. Several people came to the house, myself.
Were there 2 .22 caliber rifles in the house?
I saw 2 rifles there, yes.
And were those rifles subsequently moved to your home in New Jersey?
Yes.
And did you recently sign authorization for those rifles to be brought back to Los Angeles by a police officer named Edgar Martinez?
I did sign such a statement.
And did you turn those rifles over to him?
Yes, I did.
The boys were arrested in March of 1990, is that correct?
My understanding, yes.
And at some point, did they let you know that they had in fact been responsible for the death of their parents?
Yes.
When was that?
That was in fall of 1990.
And did they indicate to you at that time that they had been molested?
Yes.
During the time that you were out here right after Kitty and Jose Menendez died, I believe Lyle and Eric were staying at the Bel Air Hotel, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you remember meeting a man named Dr. Oziel at that time?
I met him, yes.
And was he hanging around the hotel for the period of time?
That's exactly.
Objection from the question being argumentative.
Sustain the answer straight.
What was he doing?
He was sort of around.
And did he make some suggestions to you with regard to the estate?
He mentioned that he knew a lawyer that could be good at handling probate matters.
So did he seem
Why the hell was Dr. Oziel inserting himself into this family's financial affairs? Obviously, he was there for the money, but seriously, like, he's just hanging around at the hotel so he could try to swindle some more money out of them? It wasn't enough that you charged them for attending the parents' funeral and being there in therapy support for the boys? That was the reason why you charged them? I hate Dr. Oziel.
Seem to be trying to help out with regard to the estate and the resolution of matters.
Objection calls for a conclusion on item number 6.
Sustained.
In addition to just saying he knew a lawyer, did he actually refer you to a lawyer, a probate lawyer?
We went to see a lawyer, I believe, with Mr. Oziel and Lyle Menendez and myself.
Now, was this lawyer someone you knew or someone that Dr. Oziel knew?
No, I had never seen him.
Did Lyle seem to know him, or where did the name
don't-
come from? Was this Dr.
I'm not
Oziel?
sure. I'm not sure. It could have been either Lyle or Eric, Lyle or Mr. Oziel. But I believe it was Oziel, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So you went to see this probate lawyer. Is that correct?
This lawyer.
Okay. Do you remember his name at this time?
Objection irrelevant.
Overruled.
No, I don't.
Do you remember where he was located?
I believe it was somewhere north of Beverly Hills, but I'm not sure.
And did you hire him?
No.
Why not?
Objection irrelevant. May we approach?
All right, sure. All right, you may proceed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Burrell, you indicated you did not hire this lawyer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And why was that?
I didn't like him.
Why?
I don't know. I had a feeling that he was not the type of lawyer that I would want to have on my team as a probate, part of the probate.
Why?
Okay, I think you've covered it.
I have no other questions. I would just like to have him identify. Could we mark as next in order the
Sure.
release of the rifles?
All right, Exhibit 317?
May I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Burrell, I'm showing you what we've marked now as 317. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
That's a authorization for Officer Martinez, Jersey City Police, to transport 2 rifles to California.
And those are the rifles that have been in the home of Jose and Kitty Menendez?
I believe so.
And is that your signature?
That is my signature.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, any examination on behalf of Eric Menendez? All right, cross-examination?
Good morning, Mr. Burrell.
Good morning.
Did you know Jose Menendez, or were you in contact with Jose Menendez when he met his wife, Kitty?
During all of that time, I was in contact, not that precise day.
No, but you knew him around the time that they were dating before they got married.
I believe he was staying with my parents.
All right. And then at some point after that, they got married. And during I believe there were 28 years that you knew Jose Menendez, and of those 14 years, you lived very close to him. Is that correct?
About 30 years I knew him, and I
At least
was
half?
close to him very close to him about half of that time,
And by very close, you mean in terms of distance?
within 10 or 15 minute drive,
And during the period of time that you were not within 10 or 15 minutes of him, did you still maintain contact with he and his family?
very often.
Okay. Would you describe his personality, please? And let me ask you this. Did his personality change over time, from the time you met him in Cuba in 1959 until his death in 1989?
I'm sure it did. I met him when he was 15 and knew him throughout, his life.
Did he leave Cuba because of Castro?
That's my understanding.
Is that why you left Cuba?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what was his personality like during the years that you knew him?
He was a jovial individual, very charming, very extremely talented, very intelligent. Great guy to be with, and great guy to be on his side of the team.
And if you weren't on his side of the team, how did he behave?
You don't want to be on the other side of the team from Jose.
Were you on his side of the team?
Yes,
Did you like Jose Menendez?
very much.
Did Jose Menendez do anything nice for you in terms of your career?
I'd like to think that I did something nice for him, but
All right. Well, what was your relationship with Jose Menendez in regards to your careers?
at one point in time, he was a president of a firm in Chicago, and he hired me as a vice president of finance and administration for that firm.
And when you say you like to think you did something nice for him, was that in regards to your performance when you worked at the firm?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then when the family was relocated in New Jersey, you continued to be in close contact with the Menendez family. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you describe Kitty Menendez, please? Could you describe her personality?
Kitty was also a very charming, fun person to be around. He's very active, very energetic, extremely energetic person.
Did you notice any change in her over the years, that is, let's say from 1985 to 1989?
Yes.
And could you describe the changes that you saw in her personality during those last 4 years?
She was, I think, frustrated is the biggest, or the single word that I think would describe most her personality changes. I don't think she knew how to cope with all the things that were around her.
All right. Were you in contact
I was muted. Sorry. I was saying muted myself because I was trying to rearrange my setup because the dog, blah blah blah. Anyways, I was saying, I don't even remember what I was saying now. What were we talking about? That she couldn't cope with the stress. She probably couldn't cope with the fact that her husband was essaying her children and that there was so much going on in that house constantly that they were all walking on eggshells. She was the brunt, or she received a lot of the ABUSC as well in that house. So, but again, she also committed some on her own. So it's just so hard to say, but maybe it was just a product of where she was coming from, like all the I don't know. I can't explain Kitty. I can't explain either of them. That's why it's such a crazy story.
Contact with the Menendez family after they moved to California?
Yes.
And what was the nature of your contact?
They would visit us in New Jersey quite frequently, one or the other or both of them.
Did you ever see any signs that Jose Menendez loved his sons?
Absolutely.
And what signs were those, sir?
His life pretty much was devoted to trying to educate their kids in the fashion that they thought was the best fashion possible.
And
In the fashion that they thought. So they forced all of their ideals, everything. They forced it all down their kids' throats. And forced them to be in these sports, forced them to practice 12 hours a day or however many hours a day and without food or water. Like, this is ridiculous. That's not how you're supposed to be a parent. That's not how you're supposed to have your legacy left when you are gone. That's not how you're supposed to do it. Sorry, Jose and Kitty, but no.
take it that you found some fault with some of these educational processes that Mr. Menendez engaged in.
Yes, I did.
Okay. But did it appear to you that he wanted the best for his sons?
Absolutely.
Okay. What about Mrs. Menendez? Did she appear to love her sons?
Yes, most of the time.
All right. On some occasions, did she appear to be frustrated or unhappy with her children?
Yes.
Was that something that happened constantly throughout her life, or was it more pronounced at certain times than others?
More pronounced in the last 4 years of her life.
Did you ever see Mrs. Menendez hug or touch her sons?
Excuse me?
Did you ever see Mrs. Menendez hug or touch her sons in an affectionate way?
No, I don't think so.
How about Mr. Menendez?
No.
No, when you say that they loved their children, how can you say that if you didn't see any physical signs?
Well, when you come from work and all you're thinking is about your kids' tennis instruction or choosing the right tennis coach or spending time pitching balls in the tennis court to them and to the exclusion of any other hobby or activity, I would think that would demonstrate that.
Did Jose Menendez
I think that's more like an obsession and a desire to control and manipulate the outcome of how the children grow up. I mean, obviously, every parent manipulates how their children grows up in some way or another, but you don't force your ideas down on your kids. You let your kids make their own choices, you let them make their own mistakes. You let them go and live their life without I mean, I'm not a parent, but I have knowledge of the world. You don't do that to your kids. It's just even without the SA, this kind of lifestyle is not going to lead to a good outcome for the children or for anyone.
appear to have any hobbies outside of his business that did not involve his sons? In other words, playing squash or stamp collecting or something like that?
No.
Okay, so I believe you indicated he was successful. Is that correct?
That he was successful? Yes.
A successful businessman.
Yes, he was.
Did he appear to devote a large number of hours to his business?
Yes, he did.
In addition to that, he also devoted large numbers of hours to his children. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, you were raised in Cuba. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it traditional in the Cuban family for the father to be the head of the household, or is the mother the head of the household?
I would say that's the general case of the father being the head of the household.
And did Jose Menendez appear to be the head of the household?
Yes, he did.
During the period of time that you lived close to the Menendez family, did you ever see Jose Menendez exhibit any sexual interest in either of his sons?
No, ma'am.
Did you see anything, any signs of any kind of sexual molestation occurring between Jose Menendez and his sons?
No.
Your Honor, the witness has no expertise to notice those signs.
Objection on the roll, the answer was no.
Yeah, he's not an expert. He doesn't know the signs. And it's not like they're going to do it right there in the open in front of uncles, you know?
Now, how would you describe Lyle Menendez's relationship with his mother from, let's say, the age of 15 on, if you know? Well, let me ask you this. Were you able to observe Lyle Menendez interact with his mother from the ages of 15 until 21?
Yes, on occasion.
And on those occasions, did you ever see them have any arguments or disputes?
Yes.
And during those occasions, did you ever see Lyle Menendez talk back to his mother?
Yes.
And what was her response when he talked back to her?
Her response?
Yes, what was her response?
I guess a limited response.
What do you mean by that, sir? What is a limited response?
Like, she wouldn't say anything.
She wouldn't respond.
she would, like, clench her, she just...
Would she clench her fist?
Yeah, something like that.
Did you ever see her hit Lyle Menendez from his age 15 to 21?
No.
Did you ever see her in a state where she appeared to be very physically frustrated in Lyle Menendez's presence? Do you understand my question?
I understand your question. I wonder whether... I've seen her, but I don't know whether Lyle was there or not.
Well, you indicated that at times she would clench her fist when she was frustrated with her son Lyle, correct?
Yes.
And during those periods of time, did you ever see her strike out at him?
No.
Did you ever see Lyle Menendez treat his mother with respect during those years from age 15 to 21?
No, what do you mean?
Well, I think I phrased it incorrectly. Did you see him ever treat her with disrespect during that age period of Lyle Menendez's?
Yes.
Now, I believe you indicated that that it was your opinion that Mrs. Menendez was closer to Eric Menendez than to Lyle.
Yes.
And how did you make that determination?
In part, she said it. She said that.
But that was later on, correct?
In terms of saying it, yes.
All right. So before she actually said that she liked Eric better than Lyle, did you have the...
Objection on mistakes and decisions.
It's a state. Rephrase it.
I'm sorry. You said she said something which led you to the opinion that she liked Eric better than Lyle?
Yes.
Okay. I may have misquoted you. What was it she said? Was she said that she didn't like Lyle?
That she says, I can't believe I don't like my own son.
And about what age was Lyle Menendez when she said that?
This was very shortly before their deaths.
Okay. And where was this comment made? What was it in California? Was it in New Jersey?
This was around my dinette table in the kitchen.
Do you remember what month that was that she made the comment?
It had to be sometime in the spring of '89, or maybe even summer of '89. I'm not sure.
Was it during
89.
Was it during a period of time when Lyle Menendez was still at Princeton University for that semester?
He may have gone
Crimes took place in August of '89, FYI.
back to California. I'm not sure.
All right. So sometime in the spring of 1989.
Yeah.
And Lyle Menendez was not present when she said that to you?
No, he was not.
What was her demeanor when she made this comment about, I can't believe it, but I don't like my own son? Was she upset? Was she laughing? Was she, if you know?
No, she was sad.
She was sad?
Yeah.
Now, before you had this particular conversation with Mrs. Menendez, during the years that Lyle Menendez and his brother Eric were younger, did you ever get the impression that Mrs. Menendez favored Eric Menendez over his brother Lyle?
Objection on call for speculation.
It's a state.
Did you ever see anything that indicated to you in terms of Mrs. Menendez's behavior that showed a favoritism towards Eric over Lyle?
I don't think it could be characterized as favoritism, no.
Okay. I believe you indicated in your direct examination that Kitty Menendez was closer to Eric.
I believe so.
Okay, and why do you make that statement? What's that based on?
Because I think she felt a little sorry for Eric.
Did she ever indicate to you that she felt sorry for him?
I don't know through words or actions, but there was such an indication, yes.
All right, when you say she felt sorry for him, would she display that in any particular way to your knowledge?
It would be more a type of as a reaction, perhaps, to Jose's preference of Lyle.
And when you say it was a reaction on her part to her husband's preference for Lyle, what kind of reactions did you observe that led you to believe that she felt sorry for Eric?
I think it was more the protective type of reaction.
Okay, did you ever see her act protectively towards Eric Menendez, her son?
Yes, I did.
And could you describe the kind of occasion in which you viewed this conduct?
That was primarily when Lyle and Eric would be fighting, and for one reason or another, and Eric would start crying or something like that, and she would react to that and say, stop this, or...
Okay, when you say she would react to it, would she appear to be upset by the fighting between her two sons?
Yes.
And when you say she would react, what would she do, if anything, aside from stop the fight?
That would be it.
Okay, would she ever talk to Eric after these fights?
No, not too much. That didn't stick in my mind.
Did you feel that Jose Menendez was abusive towards his sons?
Objection on calls for conclusion.
Abusive towards her son?
Yeah, Mr. Menendez. I'm talking.
Mr. Menendez?
Yeah. Did you feel that Mr. Menendez was abusive towards his children?
That's a hard question to answer because I'm not sure what the exact definition of the term abusive is.
All right. Well, then let me ask you this: when on the occasions when you talked to Jose Menendez about his parenting, okay,
Yeah.
you've related some of those in your direct examination. Did you ever feel that his parenting was abusive? And can you answer that question?
Again, we're going back to the term abusive. I'm not sure what you refer to as abusive is.
Okay. Did you ever feel it necessary to call the police and say there's something bad going on at this house?
No, not at all.
Did you ever discuss it with your mother-in-law, Maria Menendez, or your father-in-law?
The behavior that I felt was inadequate?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes, sure.
Was it something that was discussed within the family?
Yeah, at least with my wife and our own immediate family, sure.
Well, when you say your wife and your immediate family, are you referring to your daughters, or are you referring to your in-laws, or?
Primarily my daughters.
All right. So in terms of it being a family problem or something that you considered a family problem, you discussed it with your wife Terry and perhaps your daughters.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But as far as going outside of your immediate family with these concerns, did you ever do that?
No.
Okay. Now, when you would tell Mr. Menendez your assessment of his poor parenting,
Well, he was also a friend of Jose's, so he wouldn't necessarily be looking for that bad stuff. He might, because he's a friend of Jose's, he might explain some of those things away as to, oh, it's not that bad or whatever. He might, because he's his friend, he's not going to see it. He's looking at him in rose-colored glasses, if that makes sense. He sees him as a little bit more um, perfect than he is, if that makes sense.
did he ever get angry with you?
No.
Did he ever strike you?
No. No.
Did you ever see him strike his children?
No.
Did you ever see Mrs. Menendez at any time strike her children?
No.
Did you ever see Mrs. Menendez at any time lose her temper with her children?
Yes.
And what would she do to demonstrate that she'd lost her temper?
She'd really,
Okay, would she clench her fist and grit her teeth?
Yeah.
And during those times that she was clenching her fist and gritting her teeth, did you ever see her strike any other human being in her vicinity?
Maybe her husband.
Did you actually see her strike her husband?
A number of times.
All right, did you ever see him strike her?
No.
And when she struck him, would she strike him in such a way as to do injury, or was it a kind of frustrated hit, or could you describe the kind of striking that you saw?
Oh, she really hit him.
All right, did
But
she?
in the arm, as hard as she could.
So she'd punch him in the arm?
Yeah.
Now, he was a big guy, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
Oh, yeah.
He was about 6'1", correct?
About 6 feet. Yeah.
And well-built?
Very well built.
Strong?
Yes.
Okay, did he appear to be injured when his wife would strike him on the arm?
No, he'd go like that.
Okay, so he'd sort of fend off the blow?
Right.
Okay. Did he appear to take these strikes seriously? In other words, would he strike back or yell at her or anything like that?
No.
Did he ever laugh at her when she did that?
Yes.
All right. So she would get frustrated, hit him, and he'd laugh at her?
Well, she just took it. I think that's as much as she could do is just hit him hard, but not to. I don't think it was to damage him, but just out of frustration.
She was frustrated?
Yeah.
Did you notice, what was the relationship like between Jose Menendez and his wife during the period of time that the defendants were children? How did they interact with each other?
They seemed like a normal family unit. Remember we were there, so I don't know what went on in the, between themselves when they were alone. But when we were there, it was just a regular family unit. We'd play bridge, we'd do things as families, we'd go on vacation.
And aside from the instances when you talked to Jose Menendez about the pressure he was putting on his sons and his attitudes towards winning, did you see any behavior in the Menendez family that you considered to be normal?
Normal?
Yeah, did they act normal ever?
I would say most of the time.
Okay, they went on family vacations.
Sure.
Did you have family gatherings where the kids would go eat outside and the parents would stay inside?
Acting normal, going on family vacations, all that doesn't mean anything. That's diddly squat. What happens in their home when the doors are closed and no one's watching, that's what matters. So just because they acted normal and looked like a normal family doesn't mean that they were far from normal at home.
Inside and the kids would play and
All the time.
did you what other kinds of activities did you engage in with the Menendezes when their children were young?
Well, we'd get together with them quite frequently. And one of the things when they were young, one of the things that Terry and I would do was go over and play bridge with them. And so we'd see them just about every weekend. We'd go out for dinner. We'd get both families together and just play around, watch TV, whatever.
Did you take your 4 daughters into the Menendez home?
Yes.
And did you allow them to play in the Menendez home?
Well, when they were children, there were only 3, but yes.
All right, so your children played with the defendants when they were children, correct?
Yes.
Did you see any change in the relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Menendez, let's say, shortly before they moved to California and after they got to California?
There was some. I think there was some tension because of the move. I don't think Kitty wanted to go to California, and Jose had a new job in California, so there was tension there, and there was some further changes later on.
Did you know, prior to their death, did you know about the affair that Mr. Menendez had had?
No,
So that was something you learned afterwards, is that correct?
that is correct.
Now, I believe you indicated that you had some criticisms of Jose Menendez and the way he was raising his sons. I take it you don't know how sports champions are created, is that correct? Would that be fair to say? Do you understand my question?
I think I do, but you better explain a
Well,
little
I'm
bit.
talking about Olympic athletes. Do you know what kind of training and work goes into the creation of an Olympic athlete?
I have a daughter who was extremely excelled quite a bit in a sport,
And what sport was that?
swimming,
All right. And did you participate in her activities?
very much so.
And did your wife participate in her activities?
Much more than I did.
Okay. Was there a lot of parental involvement in your daughter's swimming career?
A tremendous amount.
And in order to become an excellent swimmer, did she sometimes have to make sacrifices in the other aspects of her life?
Of course.
Did she have to sometimes sacrifice having friends?
Well, she had to practice every day for a number of hours in the afternoon after school.
Okay. And did you ever see that her grades ever suffered somewhat because of her participation in sports?
No, quite the contrary. That's just an opinion, though.
But you think her grades were very good?
Yes,
All right. Is your daughter bright?
I think so.
Well, she is your daughter, right?
That's right.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this about Princeton University. I believe you indicated that you told Mr. Menendez that you didn't feel Princeton University was the appropriate place for Lyle Menendez. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that was based upon your own observations of Lyle Menendez, correct?
Yes.
Do you know people who go to Princeton University?
No. Well, yes and no. Lyle and his friends all came over to my house quite frequently.
Prior to forming the opinion that Princeton University was not the appropriate place for Lyle, had you been acquainted with anyone who had attended or graduated from Princeton University?
I understand several of the governors in the eastern states and several of our presidents have gone to Princeton. Yes,
So your opinion of Princeton University was based upon its reputation, is that correct?
that's correct.
Now, you've lived in the East Coast most of your adult life, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that in the East Coast going to an Ivy League school is fairly important in business circles?
You're not going to object when relevance agrees.
Okay. Is going to an Ivy League college something that people are proud of in the East Coast?
Same objection.
Did you consider it abnormal for Jose Menendez to want his son to go to an Ivy League school?
No.
And is going to a good college something that a parent would want their child to do, in your opinion?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. Did you ever see any interaction between Lyle Menendez and his mother when he was over the age of 15 in regards to girlfriends of Lyle Menendez's?
Interaction between them, I was not a witness to any.
All right. I believe you indicated that after Jose and Kitty Menendez were killed, that you came to California, correct?
Yes.
You arrived here on, what, Monday evening or Tuesday of that week?
Monday.
Okay. Did you participate in searching for the wills from 1981?
Yes.
And did you find them?
We did.
When you say we, who's we?
Somebody found it. I believe it was Carlos Menendez.
Do you know where you were physically located when you were informed that the wills had been found?
I was at the Bel Air, I believe, with Lyle.
And do you know where the wills were found?
Yes, and I was told that they were found, where they were found.
And where was that?
In a box in Kitty's closet.
Right, so the wills in which the defendants were to inherit their parents' estate were found inside the Menendez home, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you remember specifically that you were at the Hotel Bel Air when you discovered this information?
Yes.
Do you know what day of the week it was?
It was either Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure.
Did you discuss the fact of these wills with either Lyle or Eric Menendez after they were discovered?
Yeah, well, Lyle was with me.
All right, and did you say something to him like they found the wills?
Yeah, we went there to take a look at it and read it, and we both went out there to the house.
All right, so after you were informed by Carlos Menendez, you and Lyle Menendez returned to the family home, is that correct?
Right.
And prior to this will being discovered, did you have any knowledge of the contents of the will? In other words, were you present when it was made in 1981?
Yes.
Okay, so in 1981, were you a witness?
Well, no, I was not a witness. I was not in the house, but I knew I was named executor on it.
Did you consent to be the executor of the estate?
Yes.
So before the 1981 will was discovered in 1989, you were aware of the fact that you'd been asked to and had consented to be the executor of the Menendez estate?
That's correct.
Okay. And I take it either Mr. or Mrs. Menendez had asked you to do that?
That's correct.
And in asking you to be the executor, did they advise you of the contents of their will?
No, not the details.
Were you ever led to believe who the beneficiaries would be of that will?
Yes.
And was that done prior to Mr. and Mrs. Menendez's deaths?
Yes.
And who did you understand the beneficiaries to be?
Of that will?
Yes.
Eric and Lyle.
Okay.
Lyle and Eric.
Now, after you returned to the house with Lyle Menendez when the will had been discovered, did you have any discussion about the will with Lyle Menendez?
I'm sure I did, but I don't really recall any specifics.
When you and Lyle Menendez were going over to the Beverly Hills house, did you say to him, hey, they found the wills, let's go over and look at them? Or did you advise him of the purpose of the trip?
Oh, to the well, yeah, sure. Someone got a call, and I forget whether it was me or Lyle. Someone's got a call at the Bel Air and said the will had been found, and would you come over? And we both got into a car and went over to see the will.
Okay. During that period of time, then, did you advise Lyle Menendez, or did it appear to you that he understood the purpose of your trip back to the Beverly Hills house? That is, you were going back to look at the will.
That would be my belief, yeah.
Did he ever say to you during that trip, well, I've been disinherited?
No.
Did he ever express to you any belief that he had in fact been disinherited?
No.
Did he ever tell you that his father had indicated to him that he was going to disinherit him?
No, not at that point.
Pardon me?
Not at that point.
At some point, did he make such a statement to you?
I believe later on he did, yes. But
Okay.
I don't recall exactly when.
When you say later on, was that that was after the will had been found, though?
Right.
And were you in California or New Jersey when Lyle made this statement to you about, if you recall?
No, I don't recall.
If you can you remember the content of the conversation you had with Lyle Menendez about his belief as to whether or not he was in the will?
No, I can't. I can't really testify to that. You know, I don't. I really don't know. I know that it was at some point in time it came up, but I don't know when it was. I just don't know.
But when this particular subject that may have dealt with this inheritance came up, it was after you and Lyle Menendez had gone to the house and looked at the will, correct?
Yeah.
And when you went to the house, did you actually physically look at this will?
Yes.
And was that, in fact, the terms of that will, were they the same as your understanding of what the will was to be? Okay. When you actually saw the will at the Menendez home on Wednesday or Thursday, which would have been the 23rd or 24th of August, did the provisions of the will look familiar to you?
I didn't know what to expect, so I couldn't. It was not an expectation of. Both Eric and Lyle were named as the inheritors. There were some clauses in terms of ages for inheriting, and which I did not expect. I didn't know what the ages would be.
But in terms of the fact that Lyle and Eric Menendez were the beneficiaries, that came as no surprise. Would that be correct?
No, that came as no surprise.
You know where Eric Menendez was when you went back to the house on that date?
No, I don't.
Okay. I believe that you indicated that you were present when there was a search in a computer to look for any subsequent wills.
When there was
A search in the family computer.
there was a search, and somebody brought the directory up for me to look at, which I looked at. I tried to print something out, and nothing happened.
Okay, at the time in 1989 when you were doing the search, how would you rate your computer skills? Beginner, medium, advanced?
Somewhere between beginner and intermediate. I was accustomed to an Apple computer, but I had just acquired an IBM recently, so I was really not that familiar with the IBM.
And the computer that you searched was the IBM type computer that was in the Menendez master bedroom, correct?
Yes, it was, right.
Was there any search done at the Apple computer which was in the study?
I don't remember, no. Not by me, let me put it that way.
I believe you indicated that on some occasion before his death, at least 2 occasions, that Jose Menendez indicated to you that he was going to make a new will. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he indicated to you on, well, let me ask you this, on both occasions that he was going to disinherit his sons?
No, on the second occasion only.
Okay, so the first occasion was late 88 or early 89, and he merely indicated that he was going to make some changes.
Right.
And did he say anything more specific than that?
No.
And then I believe you indicated in the summer of 1989, Jose Menendez told you that he wanted to take his sons out of the will.
That's correct.
Where were you physically located when he told you this?
In a limousine
And do you know what state you were in?
in New Jersey.
Was he visiting?
He was in the East Coast on business, and I believe we were traveling between New York and our home in New Jersey.
And do you remember what month it was that he indicated to you that he wanted to take his sons out of the will?
It's either June or July. I can't.
You can't be more specific?
No.
Did he indicate to you why he wanted to take his sons out of the will?
Essentially because he felt that he was very frustrated and disappointed with his kids, and he just didn't feel that he could.
Because they were fighting back and standing up for themselves. So he's going to take them out of the will. I think that's why.
Justify having them as in the will itself.
When he told you that he was frustrated and disappointed with his children, what was his demeanor like? Was he relaxed? Was he upset? Was he confident? How did he behave?
He was collected, cool and collected, I would say. I mean, there was no big emotion at that point. It was just something that gave the impression that's something that he had to do, and he was going to do it.
Mr. Baralt, did Jose Menendez tell you why he was frustrated and disappointed with his children?
I think he was just. We had many conversations before with regards to some of the things that had been going on with the kids, and especially with Lyle.
And when you say you had many conversations with him, during what period of time are you referring to? Are you referring to the conversations where you had told him you didn't like his parenting, or are these different kinds of conversations?
These are conversations in during the early part of the first half or the summer of 1989.
So that was the last summer of his life.
Well, and the previous 6 months or 7 months.
Now you were aware of the fact that of Lyle Menendez's difficulties at Princeton University, correct?
That's correct.
And during the first half of 1989, Lyle Menendez had returned to Princeton University, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was it during this period of time that some of the conversations you had with Mr. Menendez occurred?
Yes.
And what did he tell you about his disappointment with Lyle Menendez during the first half of 1989?
Well, we had several conversations. One was with regards to finishing, for instance, the schooling at Princeton, and his frustration because he said, I went to school and and I had to work full time at the same time as I was going to school, and all I'm asking Lyle is to pass. And he's having all kinds of problems in passing and getting through school. And there were other conversations with regards to cheating, and there were some flags that disappeared that we had talked to him about.
What do you mean flags that disappeared?
There were some flags from the eating clubs that had been taken, and they showed up in our house, and we told Lyle, you got to take them back.
When you say eating clubs, Princeton University has clubs where people go to eat their daily meals, correct?
That's correct.
And the clubs have different names? Mm-hmm. Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay. And so you indicated that some flags that were from eating clubs showed up at your home?
Yes.
And did you make Mr. Menendez aware of this fact?
Mr. Menendez made us aware of the fact that the flags had been brought over.
All right. Did you actually see these flags in your house?
Oh, yes.
All right. And did you confront Lyle Menendez about them?
Sure.
And did he take responsibility for it?
Yes.
And were some efforts made to return the flags?
Yes, I told him he had to take them back.
Okay. And did it appear that he did so?
It appeared that way. At least they disappeared from our house.
Okay. Now, so Mr. Menendez was concerned about that fact. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember what month it was that the flags from the eating clubs disappeared?
No, it was early that year, 1989.
Early in the semester?
I believe so.
Okay. Did Mr. Menendez ever indicate to you any disappointment he had about his son Eric?
No, he told me he was disappointed in Eric as well.
Did he ever indicate to you why he was disappointed in Eric?
Not precisely.
Did he give you imprecise reasons for being upset with Eric?
Well, he mentioned about the problems with the gangs.
Take care of things. And we'll resume at 11:30. Don't discuss the matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. We'll see you all back here at 11:30.
All right, that was an abrupt change.
That caused him concern about Eric Menendez and the discussion we had about disinheriting Eric.
Both he and Lyle, there had been stories about some problems that he had with gangs.
Okay, I'm talking about Lyle or Eric.
I'm talking about Eric.
And what information did Mr. Menendez impart to you about Eric's involvement with gangs?
That I think he had punched somebody, and that there were members of the gang that were after him. Some of the fellow that he had punched.
Was it your understanding that Eric Menendez belonged to a gang, or that his involvement with a gang was for some other reason?
Oh no, he was not involved. As far as I know, he was not involved with a gang. There was some sort of a gang of a fellow that he had punched that was after him.
Was it your understanding he got in a fight with a member of a gang or some members of a gang?
Yes.
And do you specifically recall before his death Mr. Menendez talked to you about this?
No, because not at that time. That was previous conversations that we had had.
Right,
We
so,
had had.
but before Mr. Menendez died, you did know about the gang, the fight that Eric Menendez had been in with the gang.
You got to understand, I knew very, very little about it because he would, I would get like little, with a dropper, and I'd suddenly find something about a fight off of the tennis court at Calabasas.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a little while later, I said, they're very much afraid that a gang might come over, and he said that he would mention that in connection to his move to Beverly Hills, things like that. So there wasn't a story told to me about it.
So there were bits and pieces of information related to you by Mr. Menendez and you pieced together.
Right.
But in terms of his dissatisfaction with Eric, in the 6 months prior to his death, was Menendez indicate to you specific things that he was dissatisfied about with Eric?
We talked about tennis with him. I told him that Eric was very good in tennis, and he said no, he's not really half as talented as Lyle in tennis. He was disappointed with Eric in that respect.
Were there any other specific topics that he mentioned in regards to being disappointed in Eric for purposes of this inheritance that you can recall?
No, not really. Other than Eric was like secondary to him. It was just sort of like, if he disinherits Lyle, then obviously he'd have to disinherit Eric.
All right, so the main thrust of the dissatisfaction leading to the disinheritance was Lyle. Would that be fair to say?
In my mind, I don't think he ever expressed that. That's what I felt.
Okay. And you've already related to the jury the reasons he told you he was dissatisfied with Lyle.
Right.
Were there any other reasons that you haven't mentioned to the jury that Mr. Menendez expressed to you about his dissatisfaction with Lyle?
No, we didn't get into it at that conversation.
One more question. Did he tell you that he had already disinherited them or that he was going to?
Oh, no. He was going to write a will. No, there was no question about that.
But was it your impression that this new will had already been written?
No, it had not been written yet.
And this was in the summer of 1989?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further inquiry on this subject?
I'm assuming this is not in front of the jury because they're not standing at the podium and they're hard to hear. So this is probably a voir dire of him testifying to this whole gang thing, which sounds like Eric wasn't even like in a gang. It was just a member of a gang that he had punched or gotten into a fight with, an argument with. And now that person and their gang was after Eric. So what's the point of this? I don't know how that should come in, but whatever.
Was your impression he was going to write a will?
All right, let's not go into that because that's really beyond what we're here for. The only issue had to do with any information the witness had from Jose Menendez relating to complaints about the two defendants.
He opened the door, Your Honor, to talk about the will, and he basically squashes all rumor that there was a second will, saying no, there was never a will written. So the will that has Lyle and Eric in it is the correct one. Even though Jose may have said that he was going to take them out, he never did. He never took the action to do it.
This matter about this gang thing is not here to fight the prosecution now. I want permission to examine the witness report.
Certainly. All right, anything else now before we have the jury come out?
Mr. Frey, I'm also going to ask a question. Did Jose Menendez ever indicate to you that he was upset because either one of his sons was involved in burglaries?
No. No, I found out about it later, much after they were dead.
All right, how much longer do you think your examination will be?
I can't. Less than half an hour, less than 15 minutes perhaps. I just don't know.
All right, well, let's have the juries come in just for until noon at least, so we'll proceed with the juries this time.
Okay. Period of time that she made the first comment to you at your dining table? Or was it a different trip?
That would be the typical meeting place, would be the dinette table. And whenever she came over, that's where we would meet.
All right, and when she made when she made the second statement that you've just related to us, where she lumped both of the defendants together, was that during the same period of time as the first one, or was that on a separate and later occasion?
No, this is all in the last year.
All right, and how soon before her death would you estimate that she made that statement to you?
I don't know, between 1 month and 6 months or 8 months before.
Now, I believe right before the break, I was asking you if Mr. Menendez expressed to you specifically why he was unhappy with his son Eric, and you made some reference to an incident involving a gang. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Was it your understanding that Eric Menendez had been involved in a fight where he had been attacked by a gang?
Yeah, there was such a statement.
And was it your understanding that he fought back?
That he punched a guy, yeah, right.
And did Mr. Menendez express some concern over this particular event?
That it seemed that they were afraid that the gang members where this kid that he punched belonged to would get back to them, and who knows what.
Okay. He didn't indicate to you that he thought Eric Menendez was in a gang?
No.
Okay. Now, when he indicated to you that he had plans or expressed a desire to change his will, was it your impression that he'd already done this, or he was intending to do it?
He was intending to change the will.
And after that particular conversation, did you have any indication that he had in fact changed his will?
No.
Were there any further discussions with either Mr. or Mrs. Menendez after this conversation in which a will was discussed?
I don't believe so.
Now, after you came to California on Monday, August the 21st, after you learned of the deaths of your brother-in-law and sister-in-law, how many times during that week before you went back to New Jersey were you in the company of Eric and Lyle Menendez?
In the company of Lyle, I believe I saw him on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I think we left on Friday. In the company of Eric, I believe it was Wednesday and Thursday.
Now, did you go to the memorial service here in California?
Yes, I did.
And at that service, did one of the two defendants speak?
Yes.
And do you remember which one spoke?
I believe it was Eric.
Do you remember the subject matter of his comments at his parents' memorial service?
Yes, I do.
All right, what did he talk about?
He talked about his parents.
And when he did so, did he cry?
I believe so.
Was he able to finish? Did it appear that he was able to finish his comments?
I don't recall.
Do you remember the kinds of things he said about his parents at the memorial service on Friday, the 25th?
There were nice things. Very nice things.
All right. Now, during the week that you were in California, did you go back on Friday or Saturday, if you recall?
I think I went back on Friday. I might be wrong, but I believe it was Friday.
After the service?
Yes.
During that period of time, did you have any financial discussions with either of the defendants?
I believe I had one meeting, and I'm not sure who was there. I think it could have been Lyle alone or both Lyle and Eric, in which we discussed, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we also had a meeting, I believe, with Live Entertainment, but I'm not sure who was there either. I know Marta was there.
All right, do you remember when the meeting with Live Entertainment was?
It was right after the services.
All right, so that would have been on Friday.
Was that Friday? Okay.
Well, I can't testify.
I don't remember. It was Thursday or Friday,
But
whenever the services were.
Later in the week, correct?
No, right after the services.
Okay, but the services were later in the week, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And at the meeting with Live Entertainment, were there financial matters discussed in the presence of the family members?
I know Marta and I were there.
Do you know if either of the defendants were there?
I'm not sure. I can't recall. I know that I'm sure we discussed the subject matter with at least Lyle, before or at the meeting. But I don't know whether he was there or not.
Was the subject of a $5 million life insurance policy?
I'm going to object at this point. This is beyond the scope of doing. And it's calling for hearsay.
All right, this is the meeting that...
At Live Entertainment.
The objection is overruled, but it's a little afternoon, so we'll take our recess and we'll resume at 1:30. Or 2 o'clock. I think there's a juror who has to be somewhere and requests that we resume at 2 o'clock. So don't discuss this matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. We'll see everybody back here at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. And the witness on the witness stand and everyone else present, you may continue your cross-examination.
Mr. Baralt, are you familiar with the cooking of your mother-in-law, Maria Menendez?
Yes.
Did Maria Menendez, prior to her son's death, frequently use lemon in her cooking?
Objection on irrelevant.
Overruled.
Did she frequently use lemon in her cooking?
Not in the cooking per se, after the cooking.
Well, what did she use the lemon for?
to put it on the meat primarily.
So after something was cooked, she'd use lemon as a condiment, like ketchup or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Barral, now you indicated that you were present when some family members went through the IBM computer in the Menendez home looking for the will, correct?
Yes,
And I believe you indicated that it was your belief that even if such a will were found, that it would probably not be valid.
that's correct.
And did you get that information from someone, or was that just something you knew on your own?
This is something that I thought I knew, yes.
Okay. But in spite of that belief, were you part of the group that decided to go back to the computer after the family had arrived in New Jersey and see if something further could be found?
I had conversations about that with Carlos Menendez.
And were you aware of the fact that on August the 31st of 1989, Lyle Menendez traveled to California and hired his own computer expert?
After the fact.
All right, and did you have any conversation with Lyle Menendez before August the 31st in regards to efforts you or other family members had made to access the computer?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, do you know generally the nature of the conversations you had with him?
The description of there were some files on the computer, and we have tried to get them, and that they didn't seem to be anything there, but that we were going to try some more. That's about it.
All right, did you indicate to him in this conversation that the files had something to do with a potential will?
Sure.
All right, and you said that after the fact you found out that Lyle Menendez had traveled to California. Could you tell me, did you find this out from Lyle Menendez, or did you find it out from someone else?
I believe I found it out through Carlos Menendez.
And did you ever have any conversation with Lyle Menendez about his travels on August the 31st?
I don't believe so.
Did you ever discuss with him, did you ever express any dissatisfaction with him over traveling to California and erasing the computer?
I may have, but I don't recall.
All right, were you happy about the fact that he had gone to California and erased the computer?
Objection, Your Honor.
Relevancy?
Yes,
It's the same.
Did you ever have any discussions with Eric Menendez about the family's attempts to access the computer?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Well, sorry.
I probably did not.
Was most of your contact during this period of time with the two brothers, with Lyle Menendez versus Eric Menendez?
That's correct.
Okay. Sometime after you came to California on the Monday following the killings of Kitty and Jose Menendez, did you ever participate or did you ever see other people gather up family memorabilia, such as scrapbooks or photographs or things like that?
When?
During that week, right after the killings.
I don't believe so.
Why is this relevant? She's asking so many questions that are just, I think, wasting time and irrelevant to this case.
Okay. Were you ever made aware, or did you ever see boxes or any kind of gathering of family memorabilia anytime after that week?
I saw lots and lots of boxes.
Okay. Did you ever see boxes containing photographs?
Specifically containing photographs? No.
Did you see any boxes which partly contain photographs?
You cannot imagine how many boxes there were. I mean, there were boxes upon boxes of stuff.
Now, the boxes are these boxes that were from people packing up the house?
There were boxes of that were on the floor that contained relatively recent things. There were boxes that were all the way.
They were pack rats. They didn't throw things out. They had boxes all over their home, living in that manner with boxes all over. So the boxes aren't from anybody packing. They were just because Kitty and Jose had a messy home.
Away from where, like from 10 years prior, that were never unpacked.
All right, so are you talking about boxes that were in the house at the time that you arrived on that Monday?
Do you imagine living in your house for 10 years and not unpacking your boxes and just leaving them there? What? What? Why? And have you ever heard of storage?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, did you? How many times have you met with the defense attorneys in this case?
With the defense attorneys?
Yes.
Many, many times.
Could you give me an approximation? 5 times, 10 times, 50 times? I mean, could you give me a ballpark figure?
Oh, gosh. A couple of dozen times? More? I don't know.
Were you ever shown any family photographs or family memorabilia?
Excuse me?
Were you ever shown any family photographs or memorabilia during your discussions with the defense attorneys in this case?
I think I saw once a little album with pictures.
Did you have discussions with the defense attorneys about your proposed testimony in this case?
Yes.
Did you ever see any writings of Kitty Menendez when you were in the Los Angeles area between that Monday and Friday after the killings?
I'm sure I did.
Okay, when you say you're sure you did, do you remember the type of writings that you saw?
Oh, I went through many, many boxes that had, and the desk that was on her bedroom, and that contained documents of one kind or another. And some were recent, some were, like the will, 10 years old, or 8 years old.
When did you go through the boxes?
It was either, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure.
And that would have been the Wednesday or Thursday immediately following the Sunday when Mr. and Mrs. Menendez were killed?
That is correct.
Now, you're the executor of the estate, is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you obtained any of the family possessions?
Some.
Do you know what happened to the other possessions?
Well, most of them are Either have been thrown away, or they may still be at the Calabasas property, or they may be at with the defense attorneys, or they may be conceivably with Maria Menendez, or and I might have a couple, a few things.
Do you know how much property the defense attorneys have in this case?
Not for sure.
Have you ever seen boxes or groups of property in the possession of the defense attorneys?
I know they went through several, they went through the records a couple of times at least and selected things from there, but I don't know for sure what quantity of materials or what they actually took. I did request for receipts, but they mentioned that when the trial was over, they would give me something.
Okay, so you have no personal knowledge at this time as to what the defense attorneys took, is that correct?
That's correct.
And they never provided you with a receipt for the things that were taken, is that correct?
That's correct.
You indicated that you'd gone to see a probate lawyer recommended by Dr. Oziel who you didn't care for. Did you ultimately obtain a probate lawyer?
Yes, I did.
Do you know who recommended that lawyer?
It was a friend of the family's, my family.
From your family?
Yes, a friend of my family, yes.
And when did you first meet the defense attorneys in this case, if you recall?
I believe I met Leslie at the North Elm Street house.
Would that have been after the arrest?
Yes.
After you went back to New Jersey after the memorial service in Los Angeles, did you ever ask either of the defendants, or did you ever discuss with either of the defendants the events of the night of August the 20th?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Certainly.
After what?
Okay, do you understand the time period I'm referring to?
No, I
Okay.
missed it.
After the memorial service in Los Angeles, you and other family members returned to New Jersey, correct?
Sure.
And over different periods of time, one or both of the defendants would stay with you in your home in New Jersey, correct?
Eric would visit and Lyle would stay.
All right, so Eric was there, I believe your wife indicated, no more than 24 hours generally.
That's correct.
All right. During the month or two following the killings of Jose and Kitty Menendez, did you ever discuss with either Lyle Menendez or his brother Eric Menendez what they did on the night of August 20th?
No.
Okay. Did they ever indicate to you, did either of the defendants ever indicate to you that they come home and found their parents?
We didn't discuss it.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Correction. I believe that was, it may have been discussed once.
And with whom did you discuss it once?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Probably with Lyle, because Lyle's the one that was around us.
Did Lyle Menendez ever do anything before he was arrested to indicate to you that he had killed his parents?
No.
Did he ever do anything to indicate to you that he hadn't killed his parents?
No.
As to Eric Menendez, did he ever indicate to you before his arrest that he had participated in the killings of his parents?
No.
Did he ever do anything to indicate to you or to lead you to believe that he had not been involved?
There was one, I don't know whether this led me to believe anything, but there was one time that he said that he was sorry about the death of her mother.
That was Eric Menendez told you that?
Yes.
After the defendants were arrested before the fall of 1990, now the arrests were in March of 1990, before you were told what you testified to on direct, did you ever go to visit either of the defendants in the county jail?
Yes.
And did you ever discuss with them whether or not they had committed the crime?
No.
Okay. Now, I believe you indicated, pardon me?
I'm sorry, that is not correct.
All right, what's the correction?
I did at some point in time after that discuss with them the fact that they had done it.
All right, now, was that the occasion that you referred to in your direct examination, or was that some other occasion?
This was when I first learned.
All right, and how was it that you first learned?
It was revealed to us by our attorney.
By your attorney?
Yes.
And who was that?
Steve Goldberg.
Okay, Mr. Goldberg is the attorney for the estate, is that correct?
That is correct.
And he's not the attorney for the defendants, is that correct?
Well, he was the attorney. He also acted as an attorney for them in respect to a couple of things.
So he was the attorney for the estate and also the attorney for the defendants, correct?
No, not for the defense, for the kids.
In other matters aside from the criminal matters, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so your first knowledge about their participation was from Mr. Goldberg, correct?
Yes.
All right, and then did you personally have discussions with them?
Yes.
And did each of them individually say that they had been molested?
I believe so. Yes.
Well, when you say believe so, are you sure, or are you guessing, or?
No, I'm sure.
Now, was that in a joint conversation with both of them, or did you have individual conversations with them?
It was a joint conversation, individually joint conversation. We were at the attorney's room in the jail.
Were there any attorneys with you?
The estate attorney.
And that was Mr. Goldberg?
That's correct.
Now, when Lyle Menendez told you that he had been sexually molested, did he tell you by whom?
Yes.
What did he say?
By his mother.
He said by his mother?
Yes.
Did he indicate to you at that time that he'd been molested by his father?
No.
When he told you he'd been molested by his mother, did you believe him?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Now,
Believe him.
Eric Menendez also had a conversation with you at or about the same time?
Yes.
And did he tell you he'd been molested as well?
Yes.
And did he tell you by whom?
By his father.
Did you believe him?
Can I make the same objection, Your Honor? That's a question.
During that period of time when you spoke to them about this molestation, did either one of them, let me back up. Did Lyle Menendez at that time tell you that he killed in self-defense?
No.
Did Eric Menendez tell you he killed in self-defense?
No.
Thank you. Nothing further.
I'm sure they couldn't articulate it in that way. They were still very much in the cycle of abuse, and they probably couldn't articulate what they were feeling or why they did the things that they did because their emotions are so out of whack and they're under such stress and pressure by their parents
Redirect examination?
and fear. All right, so this is redirect now. Lyle,
Mr. Baralt, when you had this meeting that you described with Steve Goldberg, were the specifics of the killings discussed?
Yes.
And did they discuss everything did Lyle and Eric tell you everything that happened that week before?
No.
Did they talk about what had happened on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday?
The specifics were relayed to us by Mr. Goldberg.
But in terms of, I'm talking about the discussion you had with Lyle and Eric Menendez. Did they discuss?
Few things were discussed in specific at that time.
But they didn't discuss all of the details
No,
of
that's
the week
correct.
before. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Was this a very difficult discussion?
Very.
Were people emotional?
Very much so.
And how were people showing their emotions?
Eric was crying. Lyle was, his voice broken up.
And your
Very
wife?
much. And of course, my wife was also very emotional.
And were you emotional?
I was emotional, but not as much as the other three.
So was this a setting in which you could ask a lot of detailed questions, get a lot of answers?
No, it was not an appropriate setting for that.
So they gave you some information and you just accepted that
That's correct.
and you didn't ask questions?
We asked very few questions.
Mrs. Bozanich had talked to you about Jose Menendez's personality, and I believe you said he was jovial and charming. Great guy to have on your side.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? You worked with him in Chicago, is that correct?
That is correct.
And you got to see him around other business people, is that correct?
Yes.
And what type of interaction did he have with subordinates, particularly?
Objection, relevance,
Overruled.
Sometimes it would be a very normal conversation if there was a situation where something that should have been done, say, for him, was not done. You wouldn't want to be there. If
Why
that
do
were
you
the
say you
case.
wouldn't want to be there? What would happen?
Because he made sure that he was strong enough in his statements to you that you felt quite embarrassed and possibly very small, and you don't want that to be repeated.
Was this done in front of other people?
Sometimes, not.
that's how he treats his staff. How does he treat his kids and his wife?
Not always.
But would sometimes he take a subordinate who didn't measure up and humiliate him in front of the group?
Primarily, if that subordinate was said something in public against him, and then he would respond in kind, put you way down.
Okay, so if that subordinate said something critical of Jose or something that embarrassed him, he would respond in a very harsh manner?
That's correct.
Is it fair to say that being embarrassed in public was something that he was not going to tolerate?
That is correct.
And he would respond in a quite severe manner?
Yes.
And you saw this on more than one occasion, I take it?
Yeah. Sure.
You were asked about Kitty Menendez and her personality. Was she the type of person who was engaged in a lot of projects and always sort of running late?
Definitely.
And was she a personally strong person?
You mean the physical strength?
Physical strength.
Yes, I would think so.
And was she strong in terms of her personality?
Yes, I think so.
And you had the opportunity to be in their home a number of times.
Many times.
And what was the condition of their home?
It depended. It depended on the time of day, whether any visitors were coming. It could be quite messy, or it might be picked up.
And when you say quite messy, what are we talking about? Just the morning's newspapers are still on the breakfast table, or are we talking about more than that?
No, it could be the morning newspapers and the dishes and perhaps a couple of shoes laying around. Things that should not be in a neat and picked up living room could be there.
And
a half-played chess game, whatever.
Were you aware of of Jose's need to have someone's attention when he was talking to them?
He was very good at that.
And were there times when he wanted the attention of, say, his family members and he wasn't getting it, and he would do something to get their attention?
I don't know.
You don't remember ever seeing him dump drawers of silverware or empty cabinets or anything like that to try and get people's attention?
Jose?
Yes.
It could have been, but I don't remember any specific time when I saw that.
You indicated that the children, that you believed that Jose loved his children. And I think you described that he wanted them educated in the fashion that he thought best. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How was the decision made in terms of what was best for the children?
I guess he thought about it and talked about it with Kitty and himself. I have the actual mechanics of the decision. I'm not privy to it.
You have 4 daughters, is that correct?
That's correct.
And several of them went to college, I take it?
Yes.
And who picked their college?
Objections are relevant.
Sustained.
Were there differences in your family and in the Menendez family with regard to who made the decisions about what their children were going to do?
Objection relevant.
Overruled.
In terms of the colleges themselves,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure there were. I can't.
What were they?
Speculation based upon the nature of the answer. I'm pretty sure they were.
All right. Objection overruled. The answer will stand.
What were the differences?
I think Jose had definite ideas as to the education of his kids, and he was going to follow through with them. I didn't see either Lyle or Eric object to his decisions, but I did have that conversation. I think I recounted before with regards to Lyle in Princeton, and his very determined thoughts as to where he should go, and that's what I based my answer on primarily. It's that particular discussion with Jose.
Did Jose and Kitty exert a great deal of control over Lyle and Eric with regard to decisions in their life?
A tremendous amount of influence on their decision.
And did either Lyle or Eric seem to resist, or did they just go along with the program?
I would assume they resisted, but I didn't see it.
Did you ever see them resist their father?
No.
Did they seem to respect their father?
Yes.
Did they seem to fear their father?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Were you aware of what decisions were being made with regard to the college that Eric would go to?
I know Jose and Kitty wanted him at UCLA
And how do you know that?
because there was consideration for some colleges in the East Coast, among them Brown, I believe, and there was a commentary around the dinette table to the effect that they would like to have him close to home.
You indicated that
These boys were adults at this time, and the parents were still controlling them, controlling where they went to school, which I understand. If you're paying for it, okay, fine, maybe a little bit you have a say. But if your child doesn't want to go to that school, like, take that into consideration into your decision as to where they go. It's just so crazy.
you saw some changes in the relationship between Kitty and Jose over time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, you talked about times when Kitty would hit Jose.
Yes.
She would hit him with a closed fist.
Excuse me?
She would hit him with a closed fist,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yes.
seemed to hit him hard.
Very much so.
And was that something that went on throughout their married life, or was that just confined to a particular period?
It was whenever Kitty was frustrated or Jose played a trick on her, and she would just...
To punch him. Okay. Now, were you? Was there a period of time in which Kitty left Jose?
There was, yes.
And was this because she suspected he had had an affair?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Regardless of
Objection sustained.
Were you involved in getting her to come back to the home in that incident?
Yes.
Did she leave for 4 days?
Don't recall the exact amount of time, but she did leave at least overnight.
And was this because she believed that he had had an affair?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did she say why she left?
She said she suspected that he had an affair.
There you
So
go.
she
we
left
got
the
it
home.
in.
Is that correct?
Yes, she did.
Did she take the children with her?
No, she did not.
And did you talk to Jose about trying to put the marriage back together?
I don't know why you object so hard because it's going to come in somehow.
Yes, I did.
And the jury hears it anyway, so whatever.
And did he want the marriage put back together?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Overruled. Do we have a time frame as to when this happened?
1980, does that sound about right?
That's about right. 1980, 81, somewhere around there.
Did you have a discussion with Jose about putting the marriage back together again?
Yes, and he was ambivalent about it.
Did he indicate that he loved her or that he didn't love her?
Let me put it this way, he did not indicate that he loved her.
What was the interest in putting the marriage back together?
The family unit.
Did he need her to do things with regard to the children?
Objection leading.
Objection sustained.
Did he say to you why it was he needed her in the home?
He needed her to be a part of the a family unit and take care of things around the house and be there for the kids and take them wherever they had to go and essentially.
So you can't leave me because you have a role here and we need to keep our family unit together and make it look like we're still a successful family unit. So if you're unhappy, you can't go, even though I cheated on you. Ah, don't you love narcissists and the way that their logic goes?
They keep the family together, to help him in as a wife and social functions, etc.
But he didn't say, I need her back because I love her.
No, he did not.
Do you remember Lyle's girlfriends being an issue with the family in terms of criticism of his girlfriends?
Yes, yes.
And what do you remember in that regard?
That he felt that none of them were good enough for Lyle.
Did there seem to be concern on Kitty's part as well in terms of whether these young women were appropriate or not?
Yes, but not as much.
Did there seem to be concern about whether these young women were after his money?
Sustained.
With regard to Jose, was there a concern over whether these young women were after Lyle's money?
Oh, only one.
Which one was that?
I believe it was Christy. I'm
And-
not sure, but I think so.
And was there any concern on Kitty's part in that regard?
Yes, and I don't. It's either one or both of them expressed that concern. It's the type of concern that was expressed in around that dinette table.
You said that you saw some sort of kindness on Kitty's part when Lyle and Eric would be fighting, and Eric would cry. Is that right?
That's correct.
And did Jose encourage the boys to be competitive?
Yes, he did.
Did he encourage the boys to fight?
No, I don't think they encouraged them to fight.
When they were fighting, is this when they're teenagers or when they're little kids?
They're between 9 and 13, something like that.
And would Kitty, you said that she would intervene and tell them to stop.
Yes.
And would you see her comfort Eric afterwards?
No.
You said that Jose had a sense of humor. I think you described him as jovial.
Yes.
Did he play tricks on people?
Very much. Yes.
Did he sometimes embarrass people?
Primarily Kitty.
And did she like being embarrassed?
Rephrase the question.
Did she seem to respond with good humor when he would embarrass her this way, or were these the types of situations where she would end up hitting him?
Sometimes, several months after the fact, she would be very laugh about it, but not at the time.
Did it seem to hurt her?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
You were asked about what it takes to create sports champions. I believe you have a daughter who's an excellent swimmer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did she also have friends growing up?
Yes, she did.
And did she have a social life?
Very limited.
And whose choice was it for her to swim? Was it yours or hers?
Camera froze.
It was primarily hers.
And when she lost, how did you react?
All right. I don't know what happened. My camera froze, which is really weird. I don't know how to get it back. Hold on one second. Okay. I think I got it back. Okay, perfect. But you know what? I should have done this before I came back. I'm going to take the dogs for a potty break, I think, and get myself a coffee. So hold on. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that. Here we go.
How did we react?
Yes, if she lost, how did you react?
Overruled.
We would console her, say there's a next time, and that was not her day, whatever.
Were you ever around when Lyle and Eric lost?
Yes.
And did you see Kitty and Jose's reaction under those circumstances?
Primarily, yes.
And what was their reaction?
It was primarily a silence and I guess disappointment. They were mad.
They were mad?
Yeah, they didn't like that.
They ever console the boys?
I didn't see it.
Now, I believe you indicated that when you came to California after Kitty and Jose died, a will was found on either Wednesday or Thursday. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And someone else found the will but told you about it. Is that correct?
Yes.
And after that will was found, did you continue looking for another will?
Yes.
And why was that?
Because of the conversations I had had before with him, to the effect that he was in the process of writing a new will.
So the conversations were that he was in the process of writing the new will. Now, with regard to his statements about the boys and what their knowledge was, did you say that he had? What did he tell you the boys believed about whether they were in or out of the will?
That he had told.
What did he tell you he had told the boys?
That he had told boys that they were no longer in the will.
And these conversations were end of '88, beginning of '89, and then another one early summer.
Well, that particular one was only later, the second conversation, which was.
So Jose told Carlos Beralt that he told the boys he was taking them out of the well. So there's proof right there that the boys would have not thought that they were getting anything if they thought that that were true. If his dad had gone through with the threat to take them off the will, then technically that he would have another will, but he didn't. He never went through it. He just complained about them and said he wanted to take them off the will. But he told the boys to their faces that he already did. So that's the discrepancy, and that's what this witness is. Is his testimony is important because he's saying the boys told him that they knew, or that Jose had told him that the boys knew that they weren't in the will anymore. So that's important to go as to motive.
It was early summer.
That he'd already told them they were out of the will.
Yes.
And after you found the old will in the house, you then went to the bank still looking for a new will. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And when you went to the bank looking for the new will, was Lyle with you?
Yes, he was.
And was Brian Anderson with you?
I believe so.
After this discussion with Jose Menendez, in which he said that he'd already told his sons that they were out of the will and he was thinking of drafting a new will, disinheriting them, did he go ahead and embark upon the purchase of a condominium for Lyle Menendez?
Yes, he did.
And to your knowledge, was Lyle Menendez supposed to return to Princeton in the fall, and Jose Menendez and Kitty Menendez were going to be paying for that?
Yes, that was the plan.
You referred to the stealing of flags from an eating club.
Yes,
Was that sort of a college prank type of situation?
Objection called for completion on 5 minutes.
Overruled.
that was my belief.
After you found the old will, in addition to going to the bank, to the safety deposit box looking for a new will, what other efforts did you make to find the new will you believed existed?
I contacted every attorney that I became aware of that had any contacts with Jose.
Did you ever find a new will?
No, I did not.
With regard to the reference
So he sought out a new will. If it had been written, they would have found it somewhere on the computer or with other attorneys. But this particular witness would have found it if, or the adults of the group. Hold on one second. So I was saying the adults and like the aunts and uncles of this group. So like Carlos Baralt and Marta Cano, Peter Cano, those individuals, we're going to see them look for the will, and no one finds it. No one finds an updated will that was done after the 1981 version that they have in their possession. So they sought it out, they looked for it, and it was never found. So it most likely didn't exist, which is also important to this testimony for the motive. I mean, if it didn't exist and the boys believe that they were out of the will, there's no reason for them to have necessarily done what they did.
to the will and the computer, you said that you believed that such a will, if it existed, wouldn't be valid. Is that correct?
That was my belief, yes.
And you expressed that belief in front of Lyle Menendez?
Yes, I did.
And that was in California?
I believe I had a couple of conversations in which I expressed that belief, but perhaps even both in California as well as New Jersey.
I believe you indicated that you had a meeting with the people from Live Entertainment.
Yes?
Is that correct?
Yes.
And this was in the same first week that we were talking about, right after Kitty and Jose died. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And was there some discussion regarding a $5 million insurance policy?
Yes, there was.
And what was that?
There was a clause in Jose's employment contract which provided for a $5 million life insurance contract. And it was right there in black and white in a signed copy. The company, we brought that up to the company, and the company said that there would have been, had Jose taken a physical examination, but that he had not done that.
Was that a surprise that he had not taken a physical examination?
Are you asking this witness's reaction?
Did Lyle Menendez appear to know already that he hadn't taken the physical examination?
Objection calls for speculation, not recommendation.
Objection sustained.
Were there any comments made by any members of the family with regard to whether Jose Menendez had taken the physical or not?
Yes, it seems that a couple of people knew about that.
Who knew about that?
I understand Lyle and also her Lyle's grandmother.
Knew that Jose had not taken the physical.
Yes.
Interesting.
And with regard to items that were in the house, were there a number of people that had access to the Beverly Hills house in terms of other family members?
Objection sustained.
sustained.
during that first week?
Access to the house?
Were there a number of other family members who were in and out of the house during that first week?
There was just about every family member visited the house at one point or another during that first week.
And after that first week, did various family members come back at other times?
Some of them did, yeah.
And did Maria Menendez, the grandmother, move into the house?
Yes, she did.
And were the police in the house at various points in time?
There was people from Bel Air Patrol.
And did the Beverly Hills Police Department, to your knowledge, go in with a search warrant at some point in time to seize a computer and some other items?
Yes, it did.
May I have just a moment?
Yes.
Mr. Burrell, when you went to the county jail and you were informed killed his parents, did he tell you how the killings had occurred on August 20th?
There was relatively little amount of communication at that in terms of detail.
Was there any detail given at all?
Relatively little during that meeting.
Okay, can you remember what detail was given during that meeting?
There was detail with regards to the reasons for the killing.
And what were you told about the reasons for the killings?
That there had indeed been molestations.
So you were told that the killings occurred because of the molestation?
Yes.
Was that by both defendants that told you that?
Well, the story was given to us by Steve Goldberg.
Objection, Your Honor, distracted, because hearsay.
Well, let me hear a little further expansion on this and then the objection.
Pardon me?
When was this told to the witness by Mr. Goldberg?
Okay, how far in advance of the defendants telling you in jail was it that Mr. Goldberg gave you this information?
Or was it while they were at the jail? Let's find out what.
All right, when Mr. Goldberg told you, I believe Mr. Goldberg was the one that broke the news to you, is that correct?
That is correct.
And where were you physically located when he did that?
At his office.
And the defendants were not present, is that correct?
That is correct.
Was it during that time that Mr. Goldberg gave you the few amount of the details that you had?
That was where we got most of the details.
All right, the objection then is sustained as to the answer the witness gave as to the reasons for the killing is hearsay.
And
The jury's admonished to disregard it.
Mr. Brault, did you love Jose Menendez?
Yes, I did.
Did you love Kitty Menendez?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Wells, do you love Garrett Menendez?
Yes, I do.
Do you love Lyle Menendez?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you, Ms. O'Connell.
All right.
Okay, is there no examination for the other jury? Listen.
Oh, yes, we did that.
Okay, well, why don't you stay here then, sir? You're not through quite yet. Almost. This way. You almost made it. How long will this take? 10 minutes. Okay. All right, we're going to have some examination where the gold jury only will be present and the blue jury can take a break. And if you could come back at 3:30, hopefully by then we'll have completed the examination, and if not, we'll let you know what's going on. Don't discuss the matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. We'll see you back here at 3:30. And we'll now continue with the gold jury only for this portion of the testimony. And if it does appear that it's longer than 10 minutes, we'll let you know. We'll then. I had to go into the gym. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
I had to get a water.
Yeah, appreciate that. All right, but if it does look like it's going to get into a little longer than the time estimate, we'll take a break and give you a chance to stretch your legs here. Of course, we're never wrong with our time estimates, so there's no reason to believe that we'll be wrong now. All right.
Mr. Peralt, I believe you testified that you are the executor of the estate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And were you involved in Lyle Menendez's purchase of a restaurant?
Yes, I was.
And why was it that you became involved in that?
That's why this is just Lyle's jury, because it's talking about, so after the homicides, with some of his money, that his newfound money, Lyle was able to purchase a pizza restaurant, which he had always wanted to do. It was something that, this wasn't like out of the blue. It was something he had always wanted. So this is his uncle talking about that. And it's only for the jury for Lyle.
You are the executor of the estate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And were you involved in Lyle Menendez's purchase of a restaurant?
Yes, I was.
And why was it that you became involved in that?
Initially because Lyle asked me to get involved.
At what level? Was he asking for advice, or for you to invest, or for you to work there? What was he asking for?
It was sort of like a de facto involvement. He was telling me that he was going to be buying a restaurant.
And did he need your approval to do that?
No, he did not need my approval.
Did he need your assistance with regard to financing?
Yes, he did.
And did he talk to you in detail about what it was he was going to do and what his plans were for the restaurant?
A number of times.
And was somebody else involved in it besides you, in the discussions of the purchase of the restaurant?
A number of people were.
Who else was involved?
I believe Brian Anderson was, Steve Goldberg was, my wife was, and there were a number of other friends of Lyle's that were involved.
And did you at some point make the decision to go ahead with the purchase of the restaurant?
No, I did not make that decision.
Was the decision made?
The decision was made by Lyle.
But where did the money come from?
He was trying to get financing on his own and wasn't able to do so. And at the very tail end, he asked whether the estate could provide funds for the acquisition.
And did the estate provide those funds?
Yes,
And were you involved in that decision?
I was involved in that decision, yes.
And why did you decide to do it?
Because I felt that it was, that Lyle had demonstrated a very strong desire to run this restaurant, that it would occupy him and focus his activities in a worthwhile endeavor.
Right.
And so you,
It's a purpose. It's a goal to work towards in his life. It was something that he wanted, and it wasn't just out of the blue that he came up with this and was like, "Oh, I'm just going to run a restaurant." I think he had actually, thought about it and had done research into it and all that kind of stuff. So, and knowing his parents, don't you think he would have been prepared beforehand before just diving into something like that? Don't you think he would have thought it through and done the necessary research, or at least enough to get him to where he needed to be?
along with other people, went along with that decision. Is that correct?
Yes,
And did he appear to be involved in running the restaurant?
very much so, yes.
And did you feel that this was in his best interest to have some sort of focus or structure to his life at this time?
That's exactly the reason why I did this, because he was going off in many directions and looking at all kinds of different investments and things that I knew were way above his capabilities in terms of financing and high finance and things of that sort.
Did he
Now,
seem totally unrealistic during this period of time?
Dr. Foster, complete on part of this.
In terms of trying to figure out what he was going to do with his life, did he seem to have a number of very unrealistic ideas?
Dr. Foster, speculate your conclusions.
Yes, he seemed that way to me.
And did this restaurant seem like something that was realistic and doable?
Both realistic, doable, and he had a very, very high expectations and interest in it.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Can I just answer a question? Mr. Burrell, the first you learned about this restaurant is that Loudon told you he was going to buy the restaurant.
That he was looking at it, yes.
All right, and did he tell you where the money was going to come from to purchase the restaurant the first time you discussed it with him?
No.
All right, and at that time you were aware of how much money he had taken his parents' estate or from the fact of his parents' death?
I was aware he had received insurance money, yes.
Were you aware of the amount?
Yes, I was.
About $325,000?
That's correct.
And were you aware of the cost of the restaurant, purchase price?
Not the first time. That didn't come till much later.
All right, and much later did you learn the purchase price of the restaurant was approximately $550,000?
At the tail end, yes.
And that was when you agreed to supply money from the estate to purchase it, is that correct?
That is correct.
And at the time that you agreed to this particular transaction, did you believe that Loudon Menendez was not involved in the killing of his parents?
That is correct.
And I believe you indicated he attempted to get financing on his own but was unable to and then turned to you as the executive of the estate, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did he ever tell you anything about his difficulties in getting financing?
Yes, I believe he told me a couple of things I don't recall, but we did discuss that.
I don't think.
Anything else?
Okay, so what happened to the restaurant?
The restaurant went back to the prior owner.
No, Your Honor. I think that's 10 minutes.
It's less than 10 minutes. They were wrong again. All right, we'll be in recess then until 3:30. Don't discuss this case with anyone before any final opinions about it. We'll resume at 3:30.
My name is Joan Vandermolen. Vandermole.
This is, as she said, Joan Vandermolen, and she is Kitty Menendez's sister.
Mrs.
Vandermolen, was Kitty Menendez your sister?
Yes, she was.
And during the course of your adult life, did you have regular contact with your sister?
Yes, I did.
Did you see her regularly, or was most of the contact by phone?
We saw each other infrequently, but we talked on the phone regularly.
And would these be very brief conversations, or were they long conversations?
No, they were very long, hours at a time.
And in those conversations, was your sister open with you about her feelings or what was going on in her life?
Well, I thought she was.
After her death, did you find that she had hidden a lot of information from you?
Yes.
Was she a secretive person?
My sister was very private. Her image was so important to her.
Did you find out after her death that there were things that were not going well in her life that she had kept from you?
Yes, unfortunately.
And in those regular phone conversations you had with her, were a number of them after she moved to California?
Yes, very many.
And did you visit her in California?
Yes.
And did she talk to you about the fact that she was taking medication for depression?
Yes, she did.
And did you know she was going to a therapist?
Yes.
And did she explain to you why?
The reason she told me was that she was depressed, having had to leave Princeton because she loved her home in Princeton that they had just acquired, and she was having difficulty adjusting to life in California.
Did she ever reveal to you that she had discovered that her husband had had an 8-year affair?
No. In fact, she made a specific phone call to me at one time to tell me about a conversation that Jose had had with her in which he explained that he felt out of place at a meeting he'd had the night before because there were a lot of CEOs there and everybody had a mistress or multiple marriages. And he said he really felt out of place because he was the only one that didn't have any girlfriends or ex-wives or anything.
And Kitty repeated this story.
Kitty told me this, and I know now that she knew different, but she made a specific phone call to me to relay this information to me.
And you were with her around the time that she bought the home in Beverly Hills?
Yes, I was with her on the day that the contract was accepted.
Did she drive you around to show you the houses that she had looked at or made offers on?
Yes, she did.
Mrs. Vandermolen, are you wealthy?
No.
Was there a substantial difference between your economic status and your sister's?
Yes.
Overall, the answer will stay.
And when you were out here visiting, she drove you around and showed you multi-million-dollar houses she was making offers on?
Yes, she did.
Did that seem important to her to have accomplished that in life or achieved that position?
Oh,
Also speculation is irrelevant.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Was there a particular statement she made which expressed to you how important having achieved this status was?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Overall.
she was very excited about getting Beverly Hills zip code. I heard the recording from the realtor when the offer was accepted, and she said, "Kitty, you finally got it. You got your zip code." And Kitty was elated about that.
Did you hear your sister express criticism or jealousy or resentment about Lyle's girlfriends over the course of this lifetime?
Objection leading to compound.
Overall.
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us, in that regard, what you remember your sister saying?
When Lyle got his first girlfriend, I think her name was Stacy, she was very upset. He was not old enough. It would interfere with his tennis was most of the problem, and I told her that it was perfectly normal and that she should learn to deal with that. And then at another time when he started going with Jamie, that upset the family terribly because Jamie was older than Lyle, and they didn't feel that she was good enough.
Now, was your sister older than Jose?
Yes, she was.
Did she lie about her age?
Yes.
That was something she was sensitive about?
Well, she was more than sensitive. She was very, very serious about it. She took 4 years off her age when she moved to California on her driver's license, and I tried to joke with her about it, and she wouldn't do that. She was, in fact, one time Eric was in the backseat of the car when we were talking about it, and I started to make a joke about it because I really thought it was humorous, and she got very angry with me that she didn't want her kids to know how old she was. They didn't know, and they weren't to know.
Oh my God.
Were you at a tennis tournament once in which something unusual happened between Jose and Eric?
Well, I thought so.
What was that?
Eric had played and
I have
lost.
some definitions at time.
This would have been approximately 1987, 1988. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was one of those years, and I can't remember which because I saw them both times. But Kitty and I had left after Eric had lost and gone to do laundry, and we were gone 2 or 3 hours because we sat and talked for a long time in my car. And when we got back to the hotel, in the meantime, Jose had taken Eric back to the hotel. And when we got back there, he was leaving Eric's room and told us that he had spent the last couple hours with Eric and that Eric was in bed and would not be going to dinner with us. And I thought it was strange because by now it was probably not even 6 o'clock.
Right. Well, that answer will stand. Next question, please.
You indicated you felt that it was strange.
Well, it was early in the evening, and Eric had played hard all afternoon and thought it seemed that he would be anxious to get a good meal.
Did you ask anything about it?
No, for some reason I felt that it was. Well, I did ask him. Yes, I did. And he said, no, Eric prefers to just stay in bed and sleep. He has some things he needs to think about.
When you were around your sister, did you also spend time around
He has some things he needs to think about. Ugh.
Jose?
Yes.
And were there times when things happened that didn't make sense to you? That didn't seem to be
Oh.
the way they ought to be?
Well, each time that we were at their house, they would leave the room for sometimes a couple hours and say they had a meeting. They were going to have a family meeting, and I found that odd, but I didn't question it.
Why didn't you question it?
Irrelevant.
Sustain.
Was there something about the rules in that family, about whether what was going on was anybody else's business, that affected what questions you'd ask?
I guess it was just their presence, Jose's presence, that whatever he said to his family was law, and you just wouldn't ask. You wouldn't question him.
And you didn't ask?
No. It wasn't my business if they were going to go have a 2-hour family meeting, and while I was there, I thought it was unusual, but
Is this an instance when you were only there for the night?
I was there for a night or two, is all, yeah.
Now, there's been testimony about Kitty having told a friend of hers that she was going to take a trip to Quito.
Yes.
Do you have relatives in Quito?
Yes, we do.
And where is Quito?
Quito's in Ecuador.
Did Kitty have plans to go to Quito?
At one time, she talked about she would like to take a trip there.
Did she have plans in August of 1989?
Not that I'm aware of.
Would she have told you that?
Yes.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained. Objection sustained. The answer is stricken.
When you say you have relatives there, now are these relatives on your and Kitty's side of the family or your husband's side of the family?
No, they're relatives of Kitty's and mine.
After your sister died, did you come to California?
Yes.
And were you in the house in Beverly Hills?
Yes, I was.
And did you and a number of other people search the computer?
Yes, we did.
And did you find an entry marked Will?
We found Will on the list, on the last entry of a list of an index.
And how many people,
Well, I think you'll get to that.
how many days after Kitty and Jose died was this?
Just a couple of days.
It was before the memorial
Yes,
service
it
out
was.
here? How many people do you remember being there working on this computer?
Probably 4 of us.
And how long did you spend trying to pull up this information?
A couple of hours. Each of us had some training in computers, so we were using what expertise each of us had gained, and none of it did any good. You couldn't get beyond the index. There
you
was
were-
nothing there.
So you were all, I take it, pushing some
Yes,
buttons and
yes.
doing various things, is that correct?
That's right.
And were you able to pull up the information?
No, just the index.
Did you ever go through your sister's effects?
I opened her nightstand. I
Was it
saw a
on
couple of family pictures there, and I also saw a letter.
No, was this on this trip that you're talking about now?
Yes.
And can you tell me about that letter?
She had written a letter to Jose, and my sister was so private, and she loved him so much, and when I saw how private and how personal and how graphic this letter was, it was just too personal, and I just folded it up and put it back in the drawer.
When you say graphic, what do you mean?
She described body parts and her love for him.
Are you talking about sexually explicit
Yes,
material?
sexually explicit, very sexually explicit.
And did you find a book also that you found to be very sexually explicit?
On her nightstand, there was a cheap paperback novel that was also sexually explicit, and my sister's image was so important to her that I just took it with me and I threw it away.
And did you find something else?
When I went back in November, among her effects in her closet was a videotape that I can't tell you why, but I felt suspicious about it, and I thought it might have something on it that Kitty wouldn't want anyone else to see, and so I took it home and found it to be a pornographic film. And I threw it away. And I never told anybody.
Why did you throw it away?
Because all that was left of my sister was the image that was so important to her, and I was trying to protect that for her. And I didn't want anybody to know, and I never told anybody.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any examination on behalf of Eric Menendez? Cross-examination.
Mrs. Vandermolen, how many times have you spoken to the defense in this case?
I haven't been keeping track, Your Honor.
You've been here several times in the past several months, is that correct?
I've been here twice in the last several months.
Over a period of days.
Yes.
And you've been in the company of the defense attorneys in this case, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, seems that's not what
Overall.
Is that right?
On occasion.
And you've spoken to the defense attorneys about this case?
Yes.
And you've given reports in this case, interviews, correct?
What?
Let's rephrase the question.
Okay. Do you remember talking to the defense attorneys where they were taking down notes?
Do you mean a couple years ago?
Well, maybe you can tell me when it was.
You tell me. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
All right. Did they come to see you at some point?
Yes.
Where were you living at the time?
In Arizona. I still live in Arizona.
And who came to see you?
Leslie and Jill.
And when you say Leslie and Jill, are you talking about Leslie Abramson and Jill Lansing?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And how many hours did they spend with you?
We spent a few hours.
Okay. And this was, the best of your recollection, a couple of years ago?
Yes.
And do you remember them taking some notes down as they spoke to you?
No, I don't.
Have you seen a report? And one more turn. Was there another time that you spoke to the defense attorneys after the time you just related to the juries?
We've spoken occasionally over the last year and a half.
And did you speak to a Dr. Hart?
Yes.
And when was that?
Last year sometime. I can't recall exactly.
And do you recall how many hours he spent with you?
No, I don't.
You never told any of those people about this videotape that you saw in your sister's closet, is that correct?
That's right.
The first time you ever said it was when you got up on the stand today?
I told Miss Lansing about it a couple of days ago.
That was 2 days ago?
A few days ago.
How long have you been here on this most recent?
2 weeks.
Now, have you visited the defendants in jail?
Yes.
And when were those visits, if you can recall?
We saw Eric and Lyle when we were here in August, and we went to visit Eric a week ago Sunday. We weren't allowed to see Lyle at that time.
I'm sorry, and you did
We
not?
saw Eric a week ago Sunday, but we did not see Lyle on that occasion.
Okay, prior to this year, had you visited with the defendants in jail?
No.
Had you received any calls from the defendants?
Yes.
Okay. You understand that they have phone privileges in the jail?
When you say the defense, are you referring to Miss Abramson and Lansing? Or are you
I'm
talking to
about
Lyle
the
and Eric?
defendants themselves.
No, I haven't received any phone calls from them
So you received phone calls from the defense attorneys?
on occasion.
On how many occasions in the past 3 years have you received calls from the defense attorneys?
I can't tell you.
Numerous times.
A few.
Now, you've been in this court when testimony has been given, correct?
A couple of times.
You've been following this case very closely, I take it.
Yes.
Now, you live in Arizona,
Yes.
and do they have what they call courtroom TV in Arizona?
Not where I live.
Okay, have you been following the news accounts of what's been taking place in the court?
As well as I can.
So you're pretty interested in what's occurring in this courtroom.
Of course I am.
Yeah.
And it was only 2 days ago that you first told anybody about this videotape that you found in Kitty's closet, is that correct?
That's right.
Now, when you found this videotape, did you secrete it in your purse?
I was taking a few other things from her closet, wearing apparel, and I just put it in there.
So you were taking some clothing from her closet as well? What else did you take?
Just some wearing apparel that we were the same size, and I took a few of her clothes.
Was this videotape the only thing that you took of that nature?
Yes.
Did you see, you indicated that you saw 2 photographs there as well.
I saw it in the drawer with the letter. There were several photographs of the family, my mother's family.
Now, were you there when the relatives went through the photographs at the house?
We
Overall.
we didn't go through any photographs that I can remember.
Did you, other than the 2 photographs that you saw there in your sister's bedroom, did you see any other photographs at the Beverly Hills house?
Yes.
And where were those photographs?
There were photographs all over the house of my grandparents and their families.
Were there photographs of the brothers when they were young?
Who are you referring to?
Asking the witness whether there were photographs in the Beverly Hills house when the defendants were young.
Of the defendants?
Of the defendant, yes.
There were photographs in the house, in books.
Were there albums of photographs?
Maria had an album, but I don't know if it was hers or if it belonged to at the house or what.
Now, after the murders, when did you arrive in Beverly Hills?
Tuesday, I believe.
So
They died on Sunday, and I believe I got there on Tuesday.
When you got to Beverly Hills, did you go to the Beverly Hills house immediately?
No.
Okay, did you go to the hotel first?
Yes.
Okay, at some point, though, you went to the Beverly Hills house.
Yes.
And you went to your sister's room and you took some clothing and you
No, not at that time.
Not at that time? No. Okay, during this period of time when you first got to the Beverly Hills house, were there other people there?
Yes.
Who was there?
I was there a couple of times. It's hard to remember. Probably my sister-in-law and my daughter.
Okay, let's give names.
Okay, my sister-in-law Pat, my daughter Karen. Possibly my daughters Diane and Kathy, but I can't recall that specifically.
Was there anyone from the Menendez side there?
I think Carlito was with us.
Who was that?
Carlito Menendez.
Was that Carlos Menendez?
Yes.
Okay.
We refer to him as Carlito.
Okay. Did you know Carlos Menendez from before?
No.
Now, at this point, when you were going through your sister's bedroom, is that the point at which you saw these photographs, the family photographs?
No, I didn't see a lot of photographs. I opened her drawer to her nightstand and saw that she had several pictures in there, and they were pictures of just a couple of pictures of our family. They were fairly insignificant, really.
Of her family?
Our family.
Okay, was it your mother?
Not that I recall specifically. I just know there were some pictures in there. I can't tell you who they were of.
Okay, but your recollection that there were family pictures of the Anderson side.
I believe so.
Now, sometime later, you were privy to some photographs that were at the house, is that correct?
What do you mean?
Well, family photographs of the Menendez family.
You asking, did you see these?
Yes.
Well, there were pictures on the wall, and there were some pictures in a book later that I saw, and I don't know who the book belonged to.
Was it an album of photographs?
I believe so.
Now, were you interested in getting some photographs of your sister so that you could take it back to Arizona with you so you can remember her by those photographs?
I believe so. It's hard to remember. It's been so long ago. We were so consumed with grief. It's very difficult to remember those few days.
So you
And not at that time, no.
sometime later did you see some photographs?
I wanted a copy. At one time, I wanted a copy of the photograph that was used during the memorial service. That's the only photograph I can remember asking anyone about, and that was not at that time.
When was that?
That was after the service in Princeton, sometime later.
And who did you request the photograph of?
I talked to Marzi and found out that it had been taken by a prominent Beverly Hills photographer, and I didn't pursue it at that time because I knew that it would have been too costly, and I had pictures.
At any time since the killings, have you been privy to photographs from the Menendez household, of the Menendez family?
I don't believe so.
So you've never seen any photographs?
No, I didn't say that. I'm not understanding your question.
Okay. The question is, at any time after the killings, did you take a look at any photographs of the Menendez family?
I didn't go out of my way to look at their photographs. If there were photographs on tables or on walls, or if Maria was showing me a book with photographs, I looked at it. They weren't anything that was prominent on my mind.
When you refer to Maria, are you referring to Maria Menendez, the mother
Yes,
of
I
Jose
am.
Menendez?
Yes.
And if she had shown you photographs, would that have been in Beverly Hills or in Calabasas?
Beverly Hills.
Did you at any time when you were at the Beverly Hills house see anybody take the photographs, letters, things of that nature from the Beverly Hills house?
No.
After the first day that you were in the Beverly Hills house, when, as you recall, Kat may have been there, and Karen, Diane, Kathy, and perhaps Carlos Menendez, did you return to the house sometime later?
I was there a couple of times. I don't think, in fact, Kathy and Diane were, they weren't there when we went. I think they went there once before they left to go back home because they hadn't seen the house.
Now, with regard to this paperback novel that you said you saw on the nightstand, is that the kind of novels that you see in grocery stores that people buy?
Yeah.
Did you take that with you?
Yes.
Did you read it?
No.
Now, you said that you found this letter in the nightstand next to where your sister, well, her nightstand. And she had one letter in that nightstand in the drawer?
I did not look at the entire contents of the nightstand. I saw a letter on top, Dear Jose, and it was sexually explicit, and I was embarrassed, and I just put the letter back in the drawer.
Do you know what happened to that letter?
And I have no idea.
Have you seen any of the other letters written by your sister to Jose?
No. I'm not aware there are any other.
Now, you said that your sister was a private person, correct?
Yes, very private.
Now, she told you that she had a therapist, is that right?
Yes.
And she told you that she had to be on medication because she was depressed?
Yes.
But she did not tell you about the affair that Jose had?
No, she went out of her way to make me think that he was quite faithful.
Now, you said that you had regular contact with your sister by phone,
Yes.
correct?
She went out of her way to make her sister think that Jose was being faithful. So that just goes to show how much they are willing to hide any kind of family secret that is a blemish on their name.
And you had these conversations for hours at a time?
Yes.
During the summer of 1989, how many such conversations did you have with your sister?
Once a week, sometimes twice a month, you know. Whenever we talked frequently, we didn't keep track. She talked to me from when she was in Princeton. She talked to me when she was in California, wherever she was.
Now, would she talk about how proud she was of her sons in these conversations?
Objection, Your Honor, here's
Overall.
She boasted about their tennis all the time.
And she spent a good deal of time with you on the phone talking about her sons.
We talked about a lot of family, not necessarily the sons all the time.
But would it be fair to say that a good part of the conversation was about her sons?
No.
No? Now, you said that being private, she didn't tell you about her husband's affair. Was that the sort of things that you would talk about? Would you talk about problems that you had with your family of a private nature?
As often as we talked and as close as I thought we were, yes. I thought we were confidants.
Okay, and you would tell her your problems?
We were very close.
Okay, but you would tell her your personal problems?
Yes, she knew things that were going on in my life.
Okay, of a private nature?
Yes.
Did you ever think that she was maybe embarrassed, ashamed that her husband had an affair on her? It wasn't something that she would tell you about?
I had no reason to think that because she went out of her way to make me believe otherwise.
Now, you said that she did confide in you that she was having some problems with her son, Lyle. Is that correct?
She only mentioned the problems when she was unhappy with his choice of girlfriends, or the choice of, or just having girlfriends, period, seemed to bother her.
Did she tell you about his academic and disciplinary probation that he had in the summer of 1989?
No, she didn't.
She didn't tell you about that?
No.
Did she tell you that she had been taping her son, Eric? Did she tell you about that?
What are you referring to?
In late 1988 through when she was killed.
Objection, Your Honor, since that's not number
Why don't you clarify what you mean by taping?
Thank you.
Are you familiar with the testimony of Eric Menendez that after he killed his mother, he found a tape in which he had recorded his conversations on the phone?
Yes.
Familiar with that?
Excuse me, but I'm going to propose an objection that mistakes the testimony.
Just in general, are you familiar with the subject matter?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you become familiar with that?
Through the course of the trial?
Had she, and are you also familiar with the fact that Eric Menendez testified that his mother ordered him to get a girlfriend and gave him a deadline of 6 months in which to do so?
Not before the trial.
Okay. Did Mrs. Menendez, did your sister ever indicate to you that she was concerned about her son Eric?
Your Honor, I'd like to approach.
Let's hear the answer first. You can answer that yes or no.
Repeat the question, please.
Did Mrs. Menendez ever indicate to you that she was concerned about her son Eric?
No.
Never did?
No.
And never told you about the taping of the recordings?
No.
And never talked about wanting him to get a girlfriend?
No. I don't think she would have told me those things. I think it's bizarre.
Okay, I'll make a motion to strike that as non-responsive.
All right, that last remark is stricken.
Excuse me.
That is, your sister had indicated to you that she had problems with the girls that Lyle had. She didn't approve of some of the girls, correct?
That's right.
And she did tell you that. Did she tell you of any problems whatsoever that she was having with her sons?
Overruled. Understand the question?
She didn't talk to me about any problems she was having with the boys.
Now, you indicated that you, in fact, have relatives in Quito.
Yes.
Did you know that there was a defense witness who came in, Alicia Herx, that came in and testified that she visited your sister on August 1st, 1989, and that she said it was very strange because your sister talked about relatives in Quito and she thought your sister was a little strange. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes.
Well, in fact, you do have relatives in Quito.
Yes.
And in fact, Kitty Menendez, your sister, did indicate an interest in going to visit her relatives in Quito.
Yes.
I have nothing further to say on that.
Yeah, redirect.
Then when Mr. Curiel asked you about how much time you had spent speaking with Mrs. Abramson and myself and Dr. Hart,
Yes.
was the focus of our questions primarily your childhood background and that of your sister? In terms of the things we asked you about?
Yes.
And were you reluctant to talk to us?
Yes, very.
And do you wish to protect your family
Yes.
image?
Yes, I do. It was my sister's image to her was the most important thing in her world, and that's why I did the things I did to continue to try to protect her.
And when you failed to tell us about the videotape earlier on, why was that?
I was embarrassed for her, and I thought it would spoil her image that I was trying to protect.
Are you a very religious woman?
Yes, I am.
Overruled. The answer will stand.
Yes, I am.
I think Mr. Kuriyama's questions were sort of suggesting that maybe...
Objection argumentative.
Yeah, rather than characterizing the inquiry, you can just ask a direct question.
You were asked questions about visiting Lyle and Eric in the jail.
Yes.
And about not telling anybody about the video until a few days ago.
Right.
Are you lying about that, finding that videotape?
No, I would rather not tell anybody about it.
And I believe he's asked you some questions about talking to Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Did you talk to Dr. Burgess also? An expert for Eric Menendez?
Yes, I did.
Did you talk to Dr. Conti also?
Yes.
I take it you love Lyle and Eric Menendez.
Very much. I love my sister, too.
Would you lie for them?
No.
Are you lying here?
No.
I have nothing for you.
Right, anything else?
No, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. You may step down. You're excused. Your next witness, please.
All right, these witnesses today so far have been really good for the defense. I think they are helping shape that picture of what it was like for those poor boys growing up in that house. And a little insight into Kitty and Jose as well. So I think these witnesses have been really good for the defense. So up next, we are going to hear from, this is going to be our last witness for this episode. We're going to hear from Patricia Anderson, who is another aunt of theirs.
It's Patricia A. Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-E-N.
Ms. Anderson, do you know Lyle and Eric Menendez?
Yes, I do.
And how is it that you know them?
I am their aunt.
And were you married to Brian Anderson?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that Kitty Menendez's brother?
Yes, it is.
How long were you married to Brian Anderson?
Almost 31 years.
When did you first meet Kitty Menendez?
It was in my junior year of high school.
And did you continue to have contact with her throughout her life?
Yes, because of her brother, Brian and Kitty were very close, so yes, we did.
And did you happen to see an incident in which you got a chance to see the competitive nature of Kitty and Jose Menendez?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And can you describe briefly for me what that was?
It was when we were fairly young and newly married. We had gone to visit Kitty and Jose, and Kitty and I were preparing dinner, and Brian and Jose were in a chess game. Brian had gone to go to the washroom, and Jose was losing the chess game and decided to move some pieces of the chess players.
He cheated?
He cheated.
What
So
happened when Brian came out of the
when
bathroom?
Brian came back from the washroom, he approached Jose and asked if he had moved some pieces of the chess players, and Jose said no, and Brian said, yes, you did. And Jose said, are you accusing me of cheating? And Brian said yes, and so with that, they got into a wrestling match in the front room.
And did somebody break up that wrestling?
So Kitty's brother and her husband playing chess, and suddenly Jose changes pieces on him, and he's accused of cheating because he was, and it turns into a physical altercation between Kitty's brother and husband, Jose.
Wrestling match?
Yes,
Who was that?
Kitty.
And how big is Brian Anderson?
Brian is about 6'1" to 6'3". I don't right around there. I don't really remember, but right there, over 6 foot.
And about how tall was Kitty?
Kitty was a little bit taller than myself, and I'm 5 foot. So I would say Kitty's like 5'4" or something like that.
Was there an incident in 1986 in which you had an opportunity to observe Lyle Menendez playing tennis in a tournament in Kalamazoo?
Yes, ma'am.
And was Jose Menendez there?
Yes, he was.
And can you tell me what his behavior was during the time that Lyle was playing tennis?
In the beginning, he sat very comfortably next to us on the stands that we were watching Lyle. And then for some unknown reason, he started acting like a wild animal. He got up and started pacing the area around the court, and he was calling out calls for Lyle to do on the court, different ways he should hit the ball and that type of thing, which is not acceptable in these type of meets.
And did something happen as a result of that?
Yes, ma'am. The officials had to come over and tell him that he was not to do this. And in the beginning, he listened, and then as soon as they went away, he went right back to do what he was doing before, which was telling Lyle what to do in the game.
And what happened at the end?
Lyle had lost the game, and Jose was just irate about the whole thing.
You say he was irate. What was he doing?
The expression on his face, he was very upset. He kept on pacing back and forth outside of the court. And what happened was Lyle stayed in the court. He didn't want to come off the court. And we were still sitting in the stands.
When you say we were still sitting, who was still sitting?
Myself, Kitty, and my ex-husband, Brian.
Okay. And so Lyle's on the court. He doesn't want to come off, and what happens?
Jose went into the court and proceeded to drag him off the court. He was very upset with him, and he was swinging his arms around and throwing...
When you say he, who are you talking about?
Jose.
Okay, so he's swinging his arms around.
Yes, and he grabs Lyle by the arm to pull him out of the court. At that point, because my sons were in competition with different things, I was going to go down and just tell Lyle that I was very sorry that he had lost, and with that, Kitty held me back and said, no, we were not to go down there, which I thought was very unusual, but...
Why did you want to go down there?
Well, being a mother, I was just going to go down and just give him a hug and tell him it was all right, even if he lost. I mean, you can
Provide comfort, support, the things that his parents weren't providing.
always try the next time.
He was about 18 years old at this time, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, right about that, yes.
Okay. So Kitty restrained you from going down there. What happened next?
Jose then took Lyle, and they walked ahead to the car, which was parked in the parking lot. And we then followed, but we were many, many steps behind.
And could you see what was happening?
Well, Lyle's head was down, and Jose was constantly talking to him and pulling him along by his arm, and I could not tell you what they were saying because we were not that close.
Did you eventually arrive at the car?
Yes, we did.
And were Lyle and Jose there already?
Yes, they were.
And what happened in the car?
In the car, Lyle was sitting in the back seat. It was like a minivan, and Lyle was sitting in the back seat, and we got into the van, and we were going to go back to the hotel, and I turned around to give my condolence to Lyle about losing, and Jose told me I shouldn't do something like that.
How did Lyle look?
Lyle looked like an animal that had been thrown on the side of the road. I mean, his head was down, he was very sad, and he didn't say anything.
Were you also present in 1989 at Kalamazoo when Eric was playing?
Yes.
And was Jose there as well?
Yes, he was.
And what did you observe there?
In that meet, it was in the back courts. And what happens is that there's like seating and then a pathway to walk, and then the courts are right there. Eric was playing, and his back was to us, and Jose was giving him commands of what he should do. Eric was playing the second seed, and so if he won that, he would have a chance then to play the next seed, which would have been the first seed. What had happened then was that for some unknown reason, Eric started losing, and Jose got very, very upset, and he was moving closer to the net, or the fencing, and with that, he was getting louder by giving his commands to Eric, and the officials were called.
What did the officials do?
The officials came over and told Jose that he should sit down, that he was not to be near the courts, that it was not permitted, and that he was not to give any kind of directions, that he was not the coach, and that he was the father, and the father knew what the rules were. The rules were to sit down and be very quiet.
And did he sit down and become very quiet?
Well, the official left, and Jose sat down for a minute, got up and laughed and did not listen to what he said, and proceeded to go back to the court area, which was right next to the fence area there.
Did Eric win or lose?
He lost.
And what happened after he lost?
Do you think that maybe it probably hurt his focus and concentration when he's got his dad screaming and yelling from the side of the court? Do you think that maybe he started to perform poorly when his dad's screaming at him? I would. I'd be messing up because I'd be so nervous not to mess up.
There was one other incident that I should tell you about, too, there that happened was...
No question, thank you.
What,
Ask another question.
was there another incident that was of significance to you?
Yes, there was.
Could you tell us what it is?
What had happened was that after the official left and that Jose was then giving more directions, Eric was in such an emotional state that he turned around and told his father to shut up. And he said it very loudly, and it stopped everybody around the whole areas. There were games going on, okay? There were like 15, 20 games going on. And what had happened was it was so loud that it shocked everybody. And Jose with that then threw up his hands and just said, I'm washing my hands out of everything. I just don't want any more thing to do with him. I can't stand this. He doesn't listen to me. And he said, that's just it. Kitty, in the meantime, sitting next to me was just a nervous wreck. I mean, she had a tendency of gripping her hands and gripping her teeth to the point that she was actually white.
You
From
said gripping
nervousness.
her hands, you just made two fists.
Two solid fists, and then I cannot do the exact description, but she would just grind her teeth like that, and that's how she was. But she was also very, very, very white, because by that time she had been holding her breath and everything because of this incident that just had gone on. Eric had then lost, and then in the meantime, Jose had just left for just a few moments and came right back, only to discover that, of course, Eric was losing, and he was then very, very upset.
How did he demonstrate that he was very, very upset?
He went into the court, and he actually was pulling Eric out of the court and just even left his bag and everything on the court. He was so upset with him. I was sitting right there, and as the door was right there in front of me, I was going to go up to Eric and say that, everything was fine. He tried his best. He really did try his best. But with that, Kitty pulled me back again, the same type of thing that I experienced many times with Lyle when we had gone to the different meets, that I was not to go up and talk to Eric at all, because his father was there.
Did you feel sorry for Eric?
Yes, I did, extremely. He was like a little bird that lost his wings. I mean, he was very upset, and he was scared. And the fright in his face was just, you just didn't miss it. It was there. Jose pulled him off the court and pulled him right across all the other courts and took him up the stairs. We were on the lower level of the tennis areas. And he pulled him up. By that time, Kitty went out to collect everything off of the tennis court, and we then followed.
Now, in either of these circumstances, did Kitty try to step in and intervene between Jose and
No,
either
never,
Lyle or Eric?
never.
Okay. So she went on the court and collected.
She collected everything, and we then followed her, and we went to the vehicle that we were in.
And what happened then?
We then went back to the hotel.
Were you all staying at the same hotel?
Yes, we were. Usually what happens is that we always went to support the boys in the meets in Kalamazoo, because we lived in Chicago at that time. And what would happen is Kitty would get us a room not too far from their room on the same floor.
So you all went back to the hotel room?
Yes, we did.
And was this in the morning or
No,
late
this was late afternoon, and we were then going to get ready for dinner.
Okay. And did you proceed to get ready for dinner?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did you then go or have some contact with Kitty and Jose about going to dinner?
Well, I had to go to Kitty and Jose's room because it then got to be very late. It was originally like around 6:30, and it now was getting on to be 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I was extremely hungry. It's been a long day. And I knocked on Kitty's door of their room, and Kitty was in the room, but there was no Jose. And she said that he was down in Eric's room.
Did Eric have a room in the same hotel?
Yes, he did. If I can remember right, it was like about 2 to 3 rooms down from their room.
Okay. So she told you that Jose's in Eric's room?
Correct.
What happened then?
She then said that we had to wait until Jose came out of Eric's room before we could go to dinner. So
Did you wait in her room or return to your room?
no, I went back to my room.
And did you subsequently get information that Jose was now back?
What had happened was I had to go there one more time. I went back to her room and said, Kitty, it's really getting very late. Why don't we just go down to eat? And she said, no, it'll only be a few more moments. Jose should be coming out of his room.
And how much time before Jose did come out of Eric's room?
If I can remember right, it was like around 8:30, a quarter to 9.
And what happened then?
We then were walking down the hallway, and
When you say we.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
It was Kitty, myself, Brian, and Jose, the 4 of us. And what happened then was we said we would like to go in and see Eric to at least tell him that we thought the game was very well. We were sorry that he lost. Jose made fun of that, but as we were there in front of the room, he said, well, okay, Eric is in his room, and he will not be coming to dinner with us. So he opened the room, and as
Opened the room.
Jose did.
Do you have a key?
Yes. And when he opened the room, we looked in, and it was a short hallway like you would have like in a Holiday Inn or something like that. I looked in the room, and it was very dimly lit, and Eric was in bed.
How did he look?
He looked very sad, and you could tell something was wrong with him, okay? He didn't want to speak to us, and I was going to go over and give him a hug, and I was told that I shouldn't do that Eric just didn't want people to hug him.
Did you then leave the room?
A few moments later, Uncle Brian wanted to give Lyle his little positive philosophy.
Lyle or Eric?
I'm sorry, Eric.
Okay. So Brian, that's your husband, their
Yes.
uncle, wanted to say something?
Yes, he wanted to go over and talk to Eric and give him, the positive that if you don't make it the first time, you can do it a second time, that type of thing. And he did. He got over there, and he did talk to him.
Then did the 4 of you go down to dinner?
No, what happened then was for some reason Kitty said she had to go back to her room, so it was just Jose, Brian, and myself that went down to the restaurant area.
Did Kitty join you sometime later?
She did, but it was much later.
And did anything unusual happen?
Yes. What happened was that Brian and Jose were in a conversation and kidding one another. Every time they got together, they always harassed one another about that chess game. That always came up every time we were together. And Jose was talking about other things pertaining to his business, and he was in the process of purchasing a video place or something like that. And so he and Brian were in that discussion, and they were talking about porno tapes and that, and how his company didn't want the porno tapes. At that point, Kitty came to the table, and Jose made fun of her because she was so late. And it upset her. But she did sit down because I was sitting with one seat, which was to the right of me, which would have been for Kitty.
Now, when you say made fun of her, was this just some sort of loving teasing that was going on, or?
No, I don't think so, because I had seen him do this other times where he would humiliate her in front of people, even if it was family.
Okay. And so did she sit down?
She sat down, and they were in a conversation. I tried to get into a conversation with Kitty, but she was not with us. She was staring off, like in a daze or just staring. I had seen her do that other times.
When you say staring,
Disassociating. She's in some kind of like trance. She's disassociating with her reality.
You'd say something to her, then she'd snap out of it? Or?
No, this time she didn't. Sometimes she did, but this time no. This time it was like wherever she was at, there was no getting her back. And I grabbed her arm and pulled it, and eventually she came back from wherever she was at. She was in deep thought about something.
Now, on this same trip, had you had a conversation with her about your own pending divorce?
Yes.
You're going to tie it into something?
I am.
All right.
And did she express anything to you about her feelings about her own marriage?
Yes, we were.
Overall.
We were going fast walking, and I was telling her at that time that I was seeking a divorce from her brother. And she said that she wished that she could have done something like that. And I asked her what did she mean, and she just said, just never mind. She said, I'm glad that you've got the courage to do it. I wish I did.
Was Kitty normally a pretty forthcoming person, pretty open?
No, Kitty was a very secretive person.
After Kitty and Jose Menendez died, did you go to their home in Beverly Hills?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you present at the time that there was an effort to get information out of a computer?
Yes, I was.
And how many people do you remember being there?
Myself, my sister-in-law Joan, Carlos
Carlos
Menendez, yes, and my niece Karen, and I want to say one or two other, but I can't really tell you. I remember those people for sure.
And how many hours did all of you spend working on the computer?
It was a couple hours because what happened was it was getting dark, and Carlos wanted to leave before it got too dark, and we had been on it at least for a couple hours.
And were people constantly pushing buttons and trying to get information out?
Yes, ma'am. What happened was on the computer it said Will, and then when you got that up on the menu, it asked for the code word, Kitty's code word. And so everyone was trying to push in different codes of dogs' names or things that they knew about Kitty and this type of thing, but we could never, so it was push the thing in. And I didn't know that much about it, but the little bit I did know, we were all taking turns at trying to put the different things in and pushing the different keys that were on the computer.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
It was password protected, this will, with Kitty's passwords? Why would Kitty's password be on it if it's Jose's will? I don't know.
Examination?
No one else said anything about a password.
No, I'm just going to shift position. What is that? I'm just going to
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Would it be accurate to say that none of the people there that were working on the computer at the Beverly Hills house knew what they were doing on a computer?
Not really. Each of us had just a little bit of computer experience, so really no, I would say no.
Okay. You were indicating that your ex-husband now
Yes, sir.
is Brian, and he was very close to Kitty. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, he is.
Do you think that they were the closest in that family of the siblings?
Between Brian and Kitty, yes, I would say they were very close, uh-huh.
And were they the closest in age?
Yes, there was only 11 months difference between them.
Now, you were indicating that you lived in Chicago during the time that the brothers went to the Kalamazoo tennis matches?
Really, it's the suburbs of Chicago, but yes, in Illinois itself, yes.
Okay.
Not
And
Chicago.
Was that just a couple of hours? Your husband is the one that has the airplane.
Correct.
So how long would it take you to get from the suburb of Chicago to Kalamazoo?
I would say maybe an hour and 10, 15 minutes, depending on the winds, if we had tailwinds or headwinds.
Would it be typical that when the Menendezes would
Kalamazoo's in Michigan. Why are they talking about Kalamazoo?
come for the tournaments in Kalamazoo, that they would stop in Chicago and then fly with you and Brian to Kalamazoo, or would they fly into Kalamazoo? And
No, they would come and stay with us because Kitty would then get them coaches to get more practice in before they went to the tournaments. And then Kitty always drove them because we never flew them.
did you know of any other parents that were so involved with their sons in sports?
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds of relevancy? Yeah. Objection sustained.
Would it be fair to say that the Mr. and Mrs. Menendez were very involved in their son's sports?
In the sports, yes.
And is it your understanding that they would go to all the matches that the brothers had?
Objection, Your Honor, beyond personal knowledge.
Rephrase the question.
Is it, what is your understanding about the relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Menendez and their sons as it relates to their tennis?
Your Honor, I'm going to object again beyond personal knowledge. Calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
The things that I knew about was just what I could tell you that I knew of Kitty when she came to Illinois. And she would be there most of the time. I could not tell you about Jose because I think there was only one or two times that I can remember that he came when they came to Illinois.
When Jose and Kitty and you and Brian were sitting up watching, first of all, I believe it was Lyle in 1987. Was that the
No,
tournament?
86. 86, uh-huh.
During the periods of time when Jose would be seated rather than up along the sidelines and yelling instructions, would he and Kitty be cheering for their son?
Kitty never said anything because I was told, I did not know much about tennis, okay, but the first time I went, I gave out a big rah-rah, okay, and I was told I was not to do that. That was not the proper thing to do. Kitty never, ever said anything. She always sat there with her hands gripped like that with the expression on her face that I showed you, okay? Jose, in the meantime, wasn't giving hurrahs for his sons. He was giving more directions, okay? I personally had not really saw them that I can remember in all the years that we had gone for both boys.
So The years that you went to see these tournaments, no one was supposed to cheer or yell out from the audience. They're supposed to be quiet.
Correct, because otherwise you disturb all the other players.
And so Jose probably stood out then as he was running up and down the sidelines yelling out instructions.
Yes, he did.
Overruled.
Now, because of the nature of tennis, I take it it wasn't proper to cheer out loud. When Eric Menendez in 1989 yelled out to his father to shut up, and you said that there were like 10 or 15 games going on, and everyone just stopped and looked.
Not actually stopped, but you could tell that there was a heavy air in the whole area because it shocked everyone.
Now, Eric was upset with his father, wasn't he?
I would say yes, only because his father had been badgering him through the whole game.
Now, with regard to, and this is in August of 1989.
Yes, sir.
Now, when Mr. Menendez, Jose said, "I'm washing my hands in this boy. He doesn't listen to me." Did he say that out loud?
Yes, he did.
And did he turn to his wife, or did he just? How did he do that?
He was standing right by the fence when he came back, and Eric had told him that, and he turned around to Kitty and said that.
Did he appear to be frustrated?
Objection, Your Honor. False objection.
Sustained.
Did he appear to be disappointed?
Same objection.
Sustained.
It's not how you act when you're disappointed.
Was your husband with you when you got back to the hotel?
Yes, he was.
And when you wanted to see Eric, was your husband with you?
Yes, he was.
Okay, so at some point, you said that your husband actually went over and spoke to Eric to try to cheer him up, to try to encourage him to do better the next time?
Yes.
Were you with him during that?
I was like in that hallway, like you can imagine like a Holiday Inn, how they have that small hallway before you go into the room. I was in there, and Jose went in first, and then Brian, myself, and then Kitty. So Brian, of course, is a big individual. His shoulders are very wide. And so as Jose moved aside and Brian went into the room then where Eric was in bed.
What time of the night was this?
It was 8:30, 8:45.
So you're going to have a late dinner that night?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if Eric had more than one match that day?
I want to say yes, because I'm trying to, because see, that day, with the day before that, he had played a couple, and I can't remember if that second day and that's.
So because he played tennis, he's not going to want to eat? Come on, Mr. Kuriyama. Of course he's going to want to eat. He's just used to not being fed because his parents would do that during practice days where they would send him out to play tennis for hours at a time with very little, if anything, to drink, water-wise, and then no food. So he's probably used to it, not getting food. But it just reeks of suspicion when Jose was in that room for how many hours with Eric, and suddenly now, oh, Eric's not feeling well, he's not coming to dinner. Get out of here. Don't make it seem like it's because he's tired. Tired people need to eat too.
Sunday, if he had played too or not, I can't. All I know it was very, very hot.
Okay. Is it your understanding that type of tournament, you keep playing, and at the first game you lose, or first match you lose, you're out of the tournament?
No, Eric was also going to play the next day, which was Monday.
It's kind
And
of a double elimination setup then?
I believe so, yeah. I really don't understand too much about it. All I know is that the next day on Monday, Eric did play and he lost again. So at that point, he was going to be playing another one in the afternoon, and we went home that day because my husband then came back that next day to pick them up.
So it was very hot, and it's your recollection that he had more than one match on that particular day?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Yes. Do you recall whether or not he had more than one match on that day?
Ask and answer.
Overall.
It was the afternoon. I want to say yes, he probably did. Okay.
I'm not sure. What does it matter?
I have nothing further this time, Ron.
May I redirect?
Just a minute.
After Jose made this statement about washing his hands of this boy, meaning Eric, he then proceeded to spend the next several hours with him. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I would say that it was at least 3 hours.
And when you went into the room before you went to dinner, how did Eric look?
Eric was in bed. The room was dimly lit. He had like a couple of blankets over him, like he was cold. And his face was like a very blank look. And we were told that he was writing in his diary. And I thought it was very unusual that I was told also that he wrote in his diary and that he wrote everything.
Well, my question is, did he look like somebody who was just tired from a long day and wanted to get a good night's sleep, or did it look like something else was going on?
No,
Sustained. The answer's correct.
Did he look just tired, or did he look upset when you looked at his face?
Sustained.
Did anybody explain to you? You said that Jose said that Eric wouldn't be coming down to dinner.
Correct.
Did he say, well, he needs a good night's sleep for tomorrow?
No, he just said that Eric was upset and that he would not be coming to dinner with us.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything else? All right, thank you. May I step down?
Eric was upset and would not be coming to dinner. So he's upset because he lost, or he's upset because his dad's a piece of garbage. You choose. I think it's the latter. But anyways, what do you guys think of these witnesses? I thought they were all really good for the defense. In part 7, we will pick up with Kitty Menendez's therapist. Also, who's this? So another psychiatric physician that treated Kitty, and some people that evaluated the brothers as well. So we still have a lot to go. Um, yeah, so stick with us. Please hit that like button on your way out. Make sure you hit the bell for the next video, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Take care, and thank you so much for watching. Bye, guys. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.